Hello, everybody. This is an exciting episode. Every episode is always fun, but this is Multiverse of Madness breakdown. Doctor Strange,
Oh,
long awaited. Feel pretty good. Can you hear me?
yo, no, they could hear you perfect. Guess what? They didn't hear me this time. You know what I'm saying? But everybody, what's cracking? What's popping? But like she said, we are talking about Doctor Strange. Okay. Now, when it comes down to it, I'm gonna tell you all right now. I'm not going to put up the spoiler gif or picture that I have because it's been a week. Okay, we've given y'all ample time to watch the movie, and it's gonna be all spoilers. Okay, I don't even want to go into the spoiler free review just because as of right now I have mixed feelings. So I'm gonna change it up. Let me just go ahead and change up the background because when it comes down to this movie, oops, I didn't mean to show this this picture of the Illuminati just yet. But when it comes down to this movie, I wanted it to be better. Okay, and I'd hate to have to bring another movie up here at the very beginning, but honestly, it may have been like a week or two before I just saw uh, the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. Okay, and that movie is specifically a multiversal movie, and it was a story that was just like S tier. Okay, I loved it, and me coming into this movie after seeing all of the commercials, I was hoping it to be on that level, but it fell short. And I'm not saying it wasn't good because I enjoyed it. There were bits and pieces that I enjoyed. I just feel like this could have been a better movie. Well, not just a better movie, but just a better story altogether.
I think this is one of like those rare moments where we are like fully aligned with how we feel about the film. It's actually really funny that you bring up that movie. What's the name again? The one you just mentioned?
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yes, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailers. Anyone who's I know that's seen it is just raves about it. I know it's really good.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this trailer. I don't know what movie I was watching. I've only seen Marvel movies in theaters recently, so it had to be one of those. But it came in theaters, and I was almost like, wow, this is kind of ballsy to be bringing this out when Multiverse of Madness is also coming out in that same arena. Like, I initially almost felt bad for that movie. I was like,
Right.
oh, you guys are gonna be so like dimmed based on Multiverse of Madness. I haven't even seen the movie, and I can probably tell you that that's actually the complete opposite. You
Right.
know,
I wasn't expecting just from everything that we have talked about in the Marvel multiverse and what we were hoping for. When it came down to that movie, I was going in like they're not gonna they can't mess with Doctor Strange. I don't know what y'all doing over
yeah.
here with your multiverse. I'm coming to see it, but that movie I would just say I'm surprised at how good it was. Okay, I'm not gonna dive into it. If Grace wants to see it, and then we can chat about it later, we can have a non-comic cinematic universe. Just have a cinematic universe and talk about that later on. But here, we're all about Doctor Strange. So tell me, Grace, just when it comes down to it, you kind of just briefly said that we're on the same page, but like, how did you actually feel about it?
Honestly, I think I can sum it up with one word, and I think it's underwhelmed.
Mm,
You know, like I am one, and you know this, to get very overhyped about a movie. I get a lot of high expectations. And usually, if it falls short, it's kind of on me because I put myself in that position. That's so totally what happened with like Spider-Man, in that, I refused to let go of what I expected it. And I remember we talked about it in almost like every episode when we started out, like, if they don't give me this, I'm just gonna be done. I'm gonna be dead. So in that situation, let's just say Spider-Man didn't deliver. That would have been on me because it's not like the studio was hyping it up. It's not like they gave me this expectation to think they would be there.
mm-hmm.
And in this one, I feel like I feel like we're justified in thinking we should have gotten more because it wasn't just the trailers, but it was like writers, directors, executives, etc. were making these like grand comments. I don't know who made it, but I know it was like a huge thing that somebody had said, on like the Marvel team, that this was really gonna maybe challenge Spider-Man in the rankings. Like we talked about that. That's a really huge statement. So I think for us to feel underwhelmed overall, and when I look at like Reddit and other comments, I think people feel very similarly. It was underwhelming. Like there was some amazing like parts of the film,
Mm-hmm.
but I kept just waiting for more. Like I expected to be like gasping and like can't catch my breath from what just is going on, and I think I only really felt that in a condensed like 10-minute part, and I'm sure that's like the part you're also talking about that is just super juicy. I wanted that for the whole film. That's what I expected.
Yeah.
Like in terms of, oh, there's going to be so many cameos. Honestly, it's like we knew of most of them,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe there was only one huge one, but it was underwhelming overall, and that was really sad to me.
Yeah. Just because let's kind of recap our expectations going in, because say going in for me, I was expecting to um like I mentioned, I was wondering if we were gonna get any other references, like any other cameos, any other things that we saw of of the trailer. Now, say the week of our last show last week, I didn't talk about it then, but I do want to talk about it now, to where something came out in the news to where uh, Kevin Feige, he didn't approve of the last trailer that came out that dropped the
Mm,
uh,
yeah.
two major cameos, which was Professor X and Captain Carter, and we talked about that last week. So when I read that, I was like, okay, for one, why doesn't Kevin Feige have final say? Because say with that, if he's just like, I didn't want that to uh if he was just saying that he didn't want to like spoil it, I get it, because we said DC did that before with Batman v Superman. I wasn't expecting to see Doomsday, but then in the trailer we get Doomsday, you know. So here, if those are the two major cameos, then definitely hold that and let us see that in the film. So when he came out with that in the news, I was like, okay, so those may be the only two. Like I went into the theater just like, okay, those may be the only two cameos that we get. You know, it was I don't know. I feel like Marvel kind of dropped the ball, even though it got me hyped. But in doing that, like you said, we were expecting more. You know.
Yeah, like if this is what we were getting in the trailers, like that should have just been like like the top of like the surface, and like just barely scraping the surface of like just cameos is the big one. Like I know we keep saying that, but that
Mm-hmm.
was a huge thing. Like this is the place to have introduced anything and everything all at once.
Right. Right.
Like, no, seriously, like this is where they could have played with absolutely anything and it wouldn't, like, I don't want to say it wouldn't have counted, but if there was like to test what audiences loved, like if they, just literally any actor in whatever role, whether it's a role we've already seen, if it's a new role, to just give us these gasping moments of like, oh my God, as we're exploring different areas of the multiverse. I mean, yes, we got a lot of multiverse. Like I said, there's a lot of great things about this film, and we'll definitely dive into it. But like I feel like we didn't even really see much of the multiverse. It was only that little
Right.
glimpse where he's hopping bum 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 bum, and then we
Right.
just land into I forget the number, but in this particular Earth that we kind of, so it's really only in two different areas. And so I think the trailer gave us all of that. Like it just I don't know. It's hard to do this. Like we
If it's a
texted from
multiverse, if it's a multiverse of madness, right? Just the title in itself, I'm expecting to a get a reference of what we saw in Loki, okay? And it doesn't have to be specific; it could be anything, right? But even when it came down to the events of Loki, we saw the timeline split. We saw everything go into infinite amount of universes to the point to where here we only got two and a half Stranges. We got one and a half Wandas. We only got one Wong, like he wasn't in any other universe, and one Mordo, and it wasn't the Mordo that we were thinking of. It was Mordo of this universe 838, and not the Mordo that we kind of expected it to be as far as in 616. That's our current universe, right? That's 616.
626, I believe.
626. Okay.
Let me double check before we say that definitively. Oh no, I think you're right. 616, 616. Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, movie starts, right? I'm watching, I'm enjoying, and it gets to the point to where it already starts to where we're back to talk about his love interest. But as far as the only connection to anything that we've seen in the past, whether if it's What If or any other show or movie, this is to me the only connection that we got to that, because no matter what, Strange is not going to end up with the Doctor. Okay, we were thinking that somehow this Strange that we know of in this timeline, he ends up with what's her name?
I just know Dr. Paul, Christine. Christine.
Christine, right? Christine and Strange get together. But no, this is the one point that we've talked about in the past to where it'll never happen, you know? So yeah. I took that. I was like, okay, this movie's starting off awesome to where there's some type of a reference to anything else.
It's, but... you know something? Okay, so this is like a pretty soft reference to What If, right? Because that was the premise to the episode that really revolved around like what if Doctor Strange like went bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we learned that basically it's just a nexus event,
right,
nexus
correct.
point. What is it?
Yeah,
an absolute point.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolute
an
point
absolute
too.
Point.
Yeah.
That him and her never end up together, because whether it's earlier in their story, it means he never becomes the Sorcerer Supreme, or just of the arts, right?
Right.
And it just, we knew this. I actually did like something from the beginning, because right off the bat, the first thing we are in is this almost like a train track dimension surrounding the book of Vishanti, the book of Vishanti, right? And we have they have I think it's Defender Strange. Is that what it is? I know they have a specific name for him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for Defender Strange, and we're introduced to America Chavez, right?
Correct.
And as they're battling, we get to a point where Doctor Strange is like, the only way that we can win is if I take your powers, because you're not sufficient, right? That's kind of the reference we hear later on that Christine makes, which is you're always the one who has to hold the knife, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very reminiscent of Endgame, or I'm sorry, Infinity War, right? When he tells Tony and Peter, like, if I have to let the boy die, like, I will let the boy die. Basically, it's like what must be done, essentially.
Right. Or even even in saying that, it's just like, even the moment of the one possibility, he saw all of however many, it's like 14 million possibilities. The one possibility that he saw Tony Stark die, or not die, but fade away. He saw everybody fade away. Mm-hmm. He saw the 5-year gap, and he saw the win 5 years down the line. So no matter what, he's just like, I have to make this call because this is the only way, and y'all are gonna have to have to suffer and endure, so
sucks to suck.
Right.
And I do like that they bring this up, because like that's monumental. You know what I mean? Before Tony makes the snap, before Scarlet makes the sacrifice, like Stephen is the one who had made the call from the very beginning that set these like planned in motion. Like you said, those 5 years, the events of Endgame. And I like that they did bring this up here. I feel like I would have been really upset if they didn't and make that connection. So I do like that they did that. And I like that when we do see Doctor Strange, like in the wedding, this kind of idea and questioning of his decision, and really forcing him to kind of reflect on all those choices with the that doctor that he used to partner with in
Right.
the hospital. We
Mm-hmm.
met him in the original Doctor Strange. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I lost my cats, I lost my brother, and he's really like, was this truly the only way?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we get a glimpse of the weight that he must hold because people went 5 years without loved ones. People came back 5 years later, with their lives completely different. And
Right.
so I can see a lot of people blaming Doctor Strange for this. And I think that's kind of something that we saw. And it's a dynamic I liked seeing that definitely for this.
Well, no matter what, like I think we've talked about it in the past. Like I think, or I thought the last reference of the blip was going to be in WandaVision, and they kind of perused over the blip in Eternals because that's what ended up bringing the I forgot the being to life in Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then from there, I can see this movie being the movie to conclude blip talk, and because no matter what, we can argue that yes, Doctor Strange is the reason we had a blip, you know, like no matter what. Well, actually no, because no matter what, if Thanos won, the blip was going to happen, but it was Strange's decision to pretty much let it happen, if that makes sense. And now people
Yeah.
are questioning it, and like his doctor friend, like you can see he's sad. And first off, him as a character, like I already had a feeling that like he doesn't really like Strange. He respects Strange as a doctor, but like no matter what, Strange not only is the only one to hold a knife, but he has to be the smartest in the room. And like he
Yeah.
kind of dismissed him at the very beginning of the first Doctor Strange, like, oh no, it's actually this. Sorry, you're wrong. I was right. I'm Doctor Strange. Peace. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So at the end of the day, like this guy, I feel like coming here, like I'm already expecting him to be a little salty with Strange, and I think he is kind of like rubbing this salt in, is like, hey, yeah, this is the only way. I lost my cat. I lost my brother. You should feel bad, even though this is a wedding. Guess what? You lost your girl. Like he's over here, like
Dude.
he is super salty as Strange.
Oh no, he speak of salty. He threw the salt in that wound. Like that when he said that, I looked at my partner like, damn. Like that
Right,
was
right.
that was crazy. And that's when Christine walks in, and this is really the only scene we see his Christine Palmer, because then I think we just transition into the rest of the story, and the next Christine is the one from the different Earth.
Hmm.
And she makes this really like this statement that I think is kind of a theme throughout this I almost want to say episode. I'm so used to breaking down like the episodes now. This
Right.
movie, and that, you're always the one who has to hold the knife. And I think that means a lot of things, like mostly that he doesn't trust anyone else to get the job done.
Hmm.
So he's the one who's always, you know, taking over. And I think that's something we saw like right from that beginning scene where Defender Strange is trying to take America's powers.
It's not only that, it's even the moment to where um 838 defeat Thanos. They defeat Thanos through Doctor Strange. That Doctor Strange, and that is what made that Strange a threat to that universe. So say no matter what, being that he is the guy that has to be that guy, that that kind of goes, or it goes into the story of why Universe 838 don't mess with Doctor Strange.
It's almost as if it's somewhat of a absolute point for him to do kind of questionable things in the name of the greater good, but it involves using the dark hold. It involves doing things that are corrupt and that end up, he doesn't think of the full consequences, right? like in, you know, 838, like his actions were the one that caused a, is it called a collision? What is it called? I'm like
Incursion.
missing, incursion, and destroyed a whole other Earth, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big theme, and I think it's very interesting to contrast that to a character we haven't talked about yet, like the Scarlet Witch, you know, who's on the same and similar path of like she's used the dark hold, she's fully corrupt in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting to kind of like contrast those two characters because like they're treated very differently in terms of I think how they're viewed in film,
Mm-hmm.
but also like it's I don't know, it's a chronic theme I think, and it's kind of cool for our Doctor Strange to see like or hear about what Defender Strange did, to hear about what this I don't know if it's what is I think they call him Superior Strange or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that
I read that.
in Earth
Mm-hmm.
838, you know, and kind of reflect that back in his own actions because at the I'm jumping around over it, but at the end of
Go
the film,
ahead.
like
Jump
that's
around. Multiverse of Madness. Where
everywhere. No, and I think there's something that if that didn't happen and if you didn't have that reflection, I honestly don't see anything stopping him from having taken America's powers at the end of the film, you know? So it's a really cool theme that we talked about. Like you know, this is something that I think in terms of Doctor Strange's character, they did really well in forcing him to kind of see himself in
mm-hmm.
a not so like I'm the only one who can get the job done kind of way, you know?
Can I pose a question to you?
Yeah.
So, say with this quote unquote theme, can you agree that no matter what, questionable things are gonna have to be done to, if you are quote unquote either the sorcerer supreme or let's say the strongest sorcerer, because in our universe, technically Wong is the
The
sorcerer
Sorcerer
supreme.
Supreme.
That's the question. Because say the only reason why I posed that is because what he did here in the Multiverse of Madness, how is that different from the previous Sorcerer Supreme getting power from Dormammu?
It's not. That's the bottom line. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
And so and that's actually a good example that I didn't even think of when I was kind of, you know, reflecting on this film, is that that is exactly what the previous Sorcerer Supreme did. And she was heavily judged by both like Doctor Strange, Mordo, all of them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, you know, when they had that scene in Doctor Strange with like their astral forms
Mm-hmm.
where she's like, it's kind of like you got to get the job done. I think that may have given him validity to do what he ended up doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a big divide between him and Mordo at the end of the film. Like Doctor Strange was like, you know, I understand why she did what she did. I do. And Mordo's like, this is and in that film, he kind of does something also that's a little not supposed to be happening. Like he, you know, manipulated time, and that's, you know, Mordo was like very definitively like, you do not do these things, and that was the big rift between them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is something I think that translated pretty well in this film, and just like seeing how they bend the rules, you know, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. But it's exactly the same. I don't see there being a difference, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
It's about. Oh, no,
so
now I'm looking. I'm like, we're 23 minutes in, and we've only made it past the first 5
we're
minutes of
definitely
the
gonna make
movie.
this a
You
part, like
know.
a part one. We're gonna make this a part one. Like I think we're gonna have to like be like, okay, at the 2 hour mark, we'll probably cut
Right.
off, and that way
Right.
we can do a 2 hour one next week as well. But yeah,
Right.
because I don't want to rush this. This is, you know, this is a big film, whether we loved it or not. It was a big film, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So from here, like we get the wedding is interrupted by let me get the name. It's Gargantos, which is like that monster we see
Mm-hmm.
come through with America Chavez, and initially you don't see him, which is kind of interesting because that's similar to the you know, monsters we saw in Moon Knight, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Doctor Strange decloaks him. He's like kind of, you know, trying to handle the situation. But what I was super impressed at is Wong's like just Wong, like him, like taking on the monster. Like that was a cool scene. I don't think we've seen a lot of like shots to kind of showcase his his skill set as the Sorcerer Supreme, his skill set just as like a master of the mystic arts, and I thought that was really, really, really cool. You know?
Wait, you can't. First off, let's run through the facts, okay?
Oh, just kidding. Hold
Starting,
on. No,
yeah,
I
yeah.
know what you're gonna
Starting
say.
from
Go
starting
ahead.
from Doctor Strange, the first one, like once I forgot the antagonist name, but like once he stole the book, they put Wong in charge because Wong's a badass. And then fast
Beyonce.
forward to fast forward to Shang-Chi, we get him fighting Abomination. So he's already defined, well defined as
Let
Wong the
me
badass.
let, let me re oh no, totally. Everyone loves Wong, 100%. Like I'm gonna rephrase it. We don't get enough of it. And I
Yeah.
think it was cool to see it here. Like it was really cool. And then obviously him and Doctor Strange kind of partnered up to, defeat this monster.
Mm-hmm.
Little tidbit, because I know when we were talking what if, we discussed a different potential monster that would come into Multiverse of Madness,
Right.
and that was Shuma Gorath.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, it was initially supposed to be him, both in the What If series and here. However, there's like a copyright dispute,
Mm.
so they had to change it to Gargantos, which answers the thing that we kind of discussed when we were looking at the trailers, because he looks like Shimagurath, but a lot smaller,
Right.
and so that's the explanation there.
Okay. Um. So they fight it off. They fend him off, and I'm just going to throw up a picture of America because that's where, like, her and Strange of our universe actually meet, and I kind of like the idea of how later on in the film they kind of explain that, like, hey, if you dreamed of this happening, this then it actually happened in another universe. So this movie, it starts with, like she said, she like Grace said, her and Defender Strange are at the book of Ashanti, but our Strange is actually visualizing this in the
Dreaming
dream.
it.
So, like, say, did you say streaming it? Is that?
Dreaming it.
Oh, I thought it said streaming it. I was like, yeah, streaming it in his dreams. He's watching it, and
Happened.
once he actually sees her, like he's like, oh, I somehow know you, but how is this real? How is this possible? You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the intro of America, and I liked her throughout the whole entire film. You know, she throughout the film she could have been quote unquote a scared innocent person, and unfortunately, like, her powers come when she's like the most frightened. But no matter what, like, even regardless of how she came out to be strong in the end, I thought the actress, I didn't get her name, but the actress played her very well.
Yeah, like this is a really cool introduction to this character. We're seeing a lot of younger superheroes come into the mix, and we suspect it to be like the lineup for like the Young Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a new addition to that like team lineup, including the twins, who we suspect at some point will actually come into the main MCU timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Kate Bishop, all of those. And her powers, like we kind of talked about it in our trailer breakdowns, like are like multiversal, like traveling, right? Like she travels through these like star like shaped dimensional portals. She comes from this utopian planet, and I believe it's like a society of just women, but I might be like remembering just like the little reading I had did on her.
I just think,
And they
honestly,
have
in
like
watching it, I think it looks just like, maybe it's just her moms were just part of that community, and I thought that was Marvel's way of, like, hey, we're throwing that out there. You know, we got
it's
wives out here.
No, it's reflective of the comics. Like that's how it is in the comics as well. And I like that she was wearing like a Puerto Rican pride flag on her chest. And so that was really cool. I think it was very representative of not just the fact that she is one of the very few LGBTQ plus superheroes in the MCU, but also, reflective of like the Latin representation that we're seeing a lot more of in this phase.
Random, because before we saw the movie, my girl was just like, hey, I just heard Bad Bunny's about to be the first Latino superhero in Marvel. I was like, oh, cool, great. And then, boom, Sorry, America beat him. America beat him to it. So I thought that, like, honestly, in that, I was like, okay, now we actually have we already had the Latino kind of comic relief in Ant Man because I love Michael Pena, you know,
Hmm.
but now we're introducing another culture into the world of being a superhero because for me I think we both talked about it in Eternals was like, oh, we actually did have Selma, so sorry
We have
America.
a couple there. We have a couple there. Like we have like Gamora, like she's Afro Latina. We have like
Zoe.
Oscar Isaac, who is like what is he? He's not.
Oh, but we're it's not the Latino aspect of them being an actor. We're talking about the character. So I can actually put
Well,
I'll
like
put
even.
Selma to the side, being that she's an Eternal. But if we're gonna talk
Mhm.
like Latino speaking Spanish, then America right here is the first quote unquote Latino superhero in the cinematic universe.
What about Jake Lockley, man? Come on. You so quickly forgot about our boy?
He is the
Oh,
body is
Latina.
Jewish.
Yeah.
The
The
body
body.
is Jewish.
The way you said that. Well, you know something, like I wouldn't discourage just like the actor like representing these characters, because a lot of these characters are like alien races. So they wouldn't even be having these kind of like lineages. I think, just having these actors representing the characters means a lot. But yes, I think to just see the pride flag in the like with like the Puerto Rican pride flag, I think it's just like that additional just like staple of like, we hear you guys, we see you guys, we're gonna do more of this. And like this space has definitely been an example of that. Like Eternals alone, I can so see if that movie had come out like 10 years ago, it wouldn't be that diverse of a cast as
Right.
it is,
Definitely.
So it's a
Definitely.
huge step, and I'm happy that we have this edition.
Sorry, I'm
What are
writing
you,
down.
what are you writing down?
I'm writing down a clip time because I'm gonna clip that. That's going on the gram. Okay.
Oh Lord.
Oh man.
We continue. Oh, speaking of just like her speaking Spanish, I do love how she just like trashes Doctor Strange with Wong. Like they're just like, he's an idiot. He knows
Right.
nothing. He's
Right.
just like, that was really funny. Let's see. So from here, this is where, they realize that, I think it's Doctor Strange who says like the original monster he sees in the dream had like ruins.
Yep.
And this is where they link up with the Scarlet Witch, because okay, ruins, this is witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we gonna go? Wanda. And
Right.
this is where we start off. This is actually a really cool thing. Like the transition was like the song from WandaVision, and we kind of hop into a dream, which we know is a different dimension,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have her wake up,
I didn't, but
and
see, I didn't at that point. I didn't know that that was, let's say, an alternate dimension or universe. I thought this was just her dreaming because we kind of get that whole dream walking kind of definition further in the movie. So I thought she
that
was
was
just
actually, I
Loki.
think, before. That was actually before. That's why, like, when you transition, you have. I think they explain it further once you kind of,
Right, right. No, I'm just saying
yeah,
we got the dream of her dreaming of her kids, but we didn't get the whole idea of if you dream this,
yeah.
then that's actually happening to you in an
Okay,
alternate universe
okay.
later in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go, there we go. And there was a little bit of a theory going on with like the different trailers, because of course we see, I think it may have been from the original, and we have like that scene with Doctor Strange with like, oh, we'll get you on the lunchbox. They're walking around with all these orchids around, and I think later on we get the scenes with her having a conversation with Doctor Strange, like, I break the rules, on the villain, you do the same thing, and you're the hero. Like that doesn't seem fair. And a lot of people were saying like, we think this is actually within the same scene, but maybe like this was a whole theory, and like this was pretty much on point, where it's like, oh, maybe the orchids are the illusion, and then when you dismantle that, you just have this like basically like dead
Oh, my
wasteland,
mind was
you
nowhere
know
thinking. I thought those were. I thought it was at one point in the movie, and then you get Dark Wanda later on in the movie. But
oh
we get
yeah.
Dark Wanda right here. So whoever
Immediately.
theorized that, kudos, man. I
Yeah,
wouldn't have guessed that.
there was a lot. And something, I think when it comes to Wanda's involvement in the film, like, I did not think she was gonna be like the only villain. I thought either she was gonna be the villain in the beginning, there's something in the middle where it's like, okay, we gotta band together, and then she kind of, that's what I really, really thought was going to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
it
did
was
everybody
not at
else,
all.
because
And it, yeah,
Wanda towards the end of, let's say, WandaVision, she knows what she did in Westview, so we're assuming that she is somewhere in secluded, uh, not necessarily being corrupted by the Darkhold, but
Darkhold.
reading the Darkhold. But we're thinking coming in, Wanda is the Wanda of good, trying to make
Yeah.
up for what she did in Westview.
And you know something? This is actually where a big part of my criticism lies.
Go
Not in
ahead.
her corruption,
Mm-hmm.
like not in her corruption, because I think this was such a cool representation of her being a villain. Because in the comics, like she plays a villain a lot, like in from just so many different storylines. And so I think the way that represented it, like as the film goes on, I thought that was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that bothers me is that we didn't see the corruption. Like we just kind of jump in the middle of it where she's
She's
already
already corrupted.
gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you know something, it's like like I said, it's not the corruption. Like she's wielding the dark hold, she's studying the dark hold. Even I think you mentioned in one of our like breakdowns, you're like, I think she's like she's got the dark hold. She's not going to be like the same Wanda we saw at the very end of like her walking away from Westview.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like that's like that's understandable. But I think we deserve to see the transition because otherwise I feel like that almost tainted the amazing story we got from WandaVision, you know?
It 100% did. I'm just gonna put it out there because her story. Let's talk about two stories, okay? Because in this movie, aside from it being the multiverse of madness, we got the story of Doctor Strange, and then we got the story of Wanda. The story for me of Doctor Strange, superb. Okay, I'm not like I have my little criticisms about it, but by the end of the movie, Doctor Strange, up until the post credits, we'll talk about that later. But
Oh,
Doctor
we're
Strange
so on
as
the same page.
up until the post credits, he grew as a superhero, to where Wanda from Jump, that story was the opposite. It wasn't for me a great story. It wasn't a great continuation of what we got from WandaVision. And I get that at the end of WandaVision, right? Her this, I forgot what it's called, but her soul is reading the Darkhold, right? And then it ends with her hearing the voices of her children. That 5 seconds, right, of the end of that season, right? That 5 seconds by today is the corruption of Wanda Maximoff,
And that's it.
and that's it.
And that is so disrespectful for a character. I mean, I've mentioned like I've been set like heavily invested in this character since Age of Ultron. Like I've read a lot of her comics. Like I really love her. But the fan base for Wanda groups is substantially over the course of WandaVision. So for you to give us this layered and like beautifully written story that encompasses so many different adaptations from major comic book storylines for this character and then treat her downfall into corruption of the with the Darkhold so poorly, I don't understand. Like I really don't understand. Like we are a decade in. This isn't a new character that they're trying to find the formula for.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't Eternals. Like I really don't know how to justify it for Marvel. Like that's a big ball to drop,
After
you
this
know?
movie, I'm just gonna say I'm changing teams. I'm team Agatha. Team Agatha should have won, but that's neither here nor there. We saw how those events perspired,
Yes.
so I am just saying.
You're like, I'm jumping ship, no longer on the Wanda train. See, like, and this is the thing. Like, I am okay with the events that happen, you know, after. Like, I think she just is a cool, like, villain. She really is. Like, she's a really good villain. but it's hard for me to enjoy it being that we just didn't get that transition. That's like, the best example I have, this is like Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones. It's not the corruption or like
Mm-hmm.
the downfall of the character into darkness that is problematic. That's very true to, I think, both characters, and it makes sense. It's that the downfall and the transition was treated so poorly and rushed and without, like, I think the attention and time that it really deserved. I think that's what's upsetting to the fandom of both scenarios, you know?
Definitely. Um, so we left off in the orchard or whatever that place is, and Grace mentions that it's an illusion, and we come to this dark place to where she's obviously now controlled by the dark hold, and she's in the outfit of what we saw at the end of WandaVision, the Scarlet Witch outfit. And from here, the conversation goes like, because initially the conversation, she slipped up and mentioned America's name, and I said it right
Hmm.
there. I was just like, Doctor Strange didn't mention it, and then 5 seconds later, he was like, I didn't mention it. But like, say the conversation after the illusion had passed is just like, give me America or else, and from Wanda to go from being good to no, let's say from semi bad working for Ultron, right? To good being an Avenger to now I'm searching every universe to kill this person. Like, what like, come on, like, who wrote this? Who decided on this?
Okay, so I'm just so heated today. Anyways, like, okay, this is the thing. We're in an era of Marvel where they've been treating villains with so much gray area in a good way.
Mhm.
Like, they're not just black and white, and it's really cool because it gives us a lot of conversation. Like, we've been able to get so much empathy for villains like Thanos and Zemo and everything like in between, really.
Mhm.
Like, we've been getting some really well crafted villains. And so it where is the where? Like, where did this how did it come to this?
Mhm.
Because when you just have this sharp transition from a character that's just been given so much dimension, so much of a spotlight, well deserved and well crafted, and then you flip it to this, it almost makes her go from like this very dimensional character to just flat and very just
Right.
black and white. And
Right.
it's just so, like, I could let it pass if it was a new villain that we have no rapport for, but for them to treat a character like this, like them like this, it's like Iron Man not having a proper send off at the end of Endgame. Like, that's how it feels to me.
Right.
It's just
Like one character that was brought up in I was watching the MCU cruise reaction the other day, but one character that they brought up that I think they said they received better as a villain uh was Hela, and Hela from Thor, right? And say when it came
yeah.
down to Hela's character, yes, she came off evil, but then later on we kind of got the backstory of just because of who she is, it's not necessarily her fault. That's her dad. It's Odin's fault. He made her that
Yeah.
way, and unfortunately, he made her too good to be like power hungry, and he had to lock her up. So she
Mhm.
had kind of like a backstory to where it backed up to to
Yeah.
to who she is. But
Yeah.
here, it's like I know we spent 15 minutes
As we
on like
should.
just leaving WandaVision hoping Wanda was actually gonna come in here good.
And you know something, like, I am not even going to apologize to you guys for how long we're going to take on this because it means a lot. Because listen, this is the first TV tie-in into the movies,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yep.
first one, and
Mm-hmm.
for them to treat it in this way, like, okay, let me just say, I watched the last episode of Moon Knight literally the second before walking into movie theaters. So going from something so well written as Moon Knight and then seeing this, it's like, Marvel, you have done better. You can do better, and you're
Right.
treating, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like almost unforgivable because you're not Sony, you're not DC.
I
Like,
just I just went on a tangent on Sony. This is something like, and I told them, it's like, hey, Marvel Feige would never do that.
I love how you said I told them, like, as if you spoke directly to the CEO.
I told them, And what do they do? Like, say, especially being that you brought up the fact that this is the first TV tie-in. Don't drop the ball. Drop the ball because yes, I understand that there are people in the theater that didn't even take the chance to watch WandaVision. They just wanted to go see the movies, right? But being that there are the fans that saw WandaVision, why not make a little bit more of a reference? Don't just play Westview off in the first 2 minutes of them meeting. You know, let's talk about the Darkhold for a bit. How could she have gotten it? Let's talk about the history of the Darkhold. You know,
Yes.
let's talk
Yes.
about if anything, if Wanda or Strange knew of the events of Westview to the point to where he could probably find Agatha, you know, something to where it's a reference of WandaVision. But say going in blind, you have no idea what the Darkhold is. You have no idea how she got it because the last time you actually saw her on screen, she was whooping up on Thanos, you know?
Mhm.
So when it comes down to it, give us a little more so it makes sense. I'm sorry I'm coming off aggressive, but this
No, we
is
should.
this is the first time. I know you just apologized, but now I feel my blood boiling right now. But yes,
Oh no,
this
I
is
said
the
I
first
wasn't gonna
time.
apologize.
This is the first time to where Marvel should have done better because they have done better, but they dropped it here.
This is like creating, I mean, like on like Moon Knight, just because it's a recent, I think it's a good example to pull. Like it is so well received. People are loving it. Like he's one of my like favorite characters right now. Like I love, Mark. I love Steven. It's like seeing him make his cinematic debut and them just dismantling all the progress that we made with this character.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a very big slap to the face of the fandom, especially those who are huge Wanda fans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna wait for you to ready. Wanda fans.
Yeah.
It's just I don't even know. But like I said, I think it's just that's the big piece that's so bothersome to me. The biggest piece because her and her actions in this film as a villain, and we'll get into that as we move forward,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully today. Um, it it's really cool, and I hate that it's almost like not as amazing as it could have been just because they didn't give us the time to really transition. And I think you said something really important is like even if they just gave us like a little bit of a breakdown maybe of the dark hold and what it really does and what it is, maybe that would have been enough to just fill that gap of understanding for us. I don't know, like
Tell
it
us
that would
tell
have been
us
cool.
that the Darkhold went into that space on the wall to where all of your private books are, you know? Because no matter what, that was the fan theory. Oh, we're going into the Darkhold. Well, remember in Doctor Strange there was a book missing.
Hmm.
Let's talk about how if it was that the Darkhold went missing from Kamatage or something like that. Tell us
Yeah.
something, you know? But
And you know something? Since they're not going to tell you, I'm going to tell you right here. So, I obviously had to look into the dark holds. We've talked about it before. We've had several references to it, specifically to just like introductions of like vampires, etc., things like that.
mm-hmm,
But essentially, it's the Book of the Damned, and they do mention this in the film. But it's actually really interesting. So I'm going to mention Mount Wundagore. We don't really get there into the film just quite yet, but I'm going to mention it here because it does tie into the dark hold.
mm-hmm,
So Mount Wundagore, I freaked out by the way when I saw this song come out and they said what it was because I know Mount Wundagore from the comics because this is where Wanda and Pietro were born.
okay.
Oh, I've talked about this like humanoid cow. I don't know if you remember this. I'm like, oh, it was like their nurse or something.
The only Cal I
When I
can
saw
think of is from
the
Peacemaker, but continue.
but in the trailer because we saw this like green cow, I was like, oh my god, is this? And I looked up the name because I couldn't remember. But is this Bova? Like she's like this. Yeah, I think she's considered like a high evolutionary, but she's like this cow humanoid hybrid. But anyways, like on Mount Wundagore, this is where Chthon, which is like a class one demon in the comics, one of the original like gods and you know superior beings to
Mm-hmm.
enter Earth. That is where he actually wrote down his dark magic and basically created the Darkhold before he jumped into a different dimension to avoid being killed off by essentially his nephew.
Mm-hmm.
And this left a piece of him in this world until he can return. Like this already connects Wanda. Like in some comics as well, like they almost retcon that event of her birth to say that a presence of him remained of Chthon, and it connected to Wanda, and that was a huge catalyst to her kind of losing it down the road, because he essentially is trying to draw in energy to find a way to return to this world. Like if they could have done something maybe a little bit more attuned to that,
Mm-hmm.
that would make sense. Because just to come into Wendigore and there being this mountain with evidently the Scarlet Witch etched in these like basically servants already there, but really no explanation. Like it's just like, okay, this is my throne. We don't question it. We don't try to dive into understanding more of it. Like it just seems sloppy, you know?
Definitely.
But you know, the Dark Hold, I have, hold on, I wrote down just like, no, 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 hold on, pause. I have several. I have a lot of notes here. Okay. So I wrote this down. So essentially it's like all mortals who use the Darkhold forfeit their souls and were corrupted by Chthon. So the direct corruption that we're seeing from Wanda, we've seen from Doctor Strange, is because of this demon Chthon. And Chthon wasn't a collector of souls like Mephisto. He instead used the mortals as pawns toward his own desire to return to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at it with that context, like that alone would just give so much more meaning to what's going on, to how she, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't get it. But we didn't get it. But that's why you watch the CCU with Chill and Grace, because we give you the scoop that Marvel won't.
Precisely. But let's continue, because say by this point, America has met with Strange and Wong, and by then Strange goes to meet Wanda, but then the threats ensue, and then Wanda makes her way to Kamartash. Now, say when it comes down to Kamartash, this is issue number 2 for me, if I'm counting. But say when it comes down to it, why aren't there other sorcerers on Wong or Strange's level? Like they had sorcerers from other places come from an Asian country and the UK, I think. They came, and in that, I'm assuming, let's say if there is a breakdown, because I've always wanted to, break down power levels and shit. But say when it comes down to the power levels of the sanctums, right? There's the Sorcerer Supreme, which is Wong. But then let's say every other sanctum around the world, they're led by, let's say, a head sorcerer. So with that being said, I'm assuming they're just on the same level as the Sorcerer Supreme, and the Sorcerer Supreme is more so just a title. But yet Wanda makes it there, and I feel like they're dealing with a whole bunch of newbies. I feel like if anything, Thanos killed off all of the sorcerers, and they went shopping and just got a brand new crew that doesn't know how to defend their quote unquote capital of magic.
it's it's just interesting how these characters or these masters of like the mystic arts can take on something like uh I guess, well, I mean, it was Doctor Strange, right? Like Dormammu and things like that, but they can't all of them come to at least give her a little bit more of a fight. Like the students of Hogwarts maintained their shield against Voldemort much longer in the Battle of like the of Hogwarts than they did here. Like this is, and they are students.
it's
These
it's
are
not it's not only
masters of the
students,
mystic
but
arts.
but everybody in the world of Hogwarts that can wield magic can they know the rules, they know the spells, and they know how to defend themselves no matter what. Here, it's just like I'm lost to where Strange and Wong they're the only ones that realize, hey, she's trying to get into their heads. Why doesn't anybody else know? Like, I think she's trying to get into my head. Like, why can't anybody else defend that?
It's interesting because you have like all three well, hold on, what are they called? All three sanctums. So there's three sanctums on Earth. It's the New York City sanctum, the Hong Kong, and the London, and they all come here, right? Like, and they each have their own leadership, and you do see one of them kind of definitely take control. I forget her name, but she's actually a love interest of Wong's, the one
Right.
that ends up sacrificing herself to destroy the
That
Darkhold.
that was kind of the
Um,
obvious. Like once that happened, I was like, oh, they were kind of digging
yeah,
each other.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will say though, it is so satisfying to see her finally use her abilities of like mind control again, because that's been slept on since Age of Ultron, and it makes absolutely no sense, for them to have just like put that power on the back end. And
Wait,
so
but she controlled the minds of Westview. What do you mean?
no, but like Westview was you're gonna tell me you didn't think to do that in Infinity War, you didn't think to do that in Civil War, you didn't think to do that in Endgame, like it's been slept on a little bit, like
True.
for us to not see it really like with full consciousness until now
Mm-hmm.
is like it's but we got it, and I thought that was really cool. Like I was excited to see her finally do that again. Like that did make me very happy. And apart from like the lack of believability that like none of them could have at least held her off a little bit longer than what they actually did.
Mm-hmm.
I did actually like this sequence. Give us the first kind of feel of those horror vibes,
Oh,
similar
definitely. Oh, for
to,
sure.
yeah. And this is Sam Raimi. This is Sam Raimi. Like
Yes.
these are the components that just blew this movie out of the water and kept it from me rating it like a 6.5. Like this is what definitely raised the movie up to me being okay with it, but still having just a lot of little, you know what I mean? Yeah.
The reason why, listen, everybody, I asked Grace last week how she thought of the movie. She said, "See it and let me know." Right? I didn't text her just because I rated it like a 7, and her hearing her now say it was a 6.5, like I could have just. I didn't want to just bring that negative energy because I thought, if anything, Grace loved it. But I was just like, we'll talk about it next Friday.
Guys, like
But
he texted me. He's like, Grace, like, where do you stand on the movie? Am I gonna have to play like devil's advocate, like as always? It's not gonna be me. And I was like, I think we're on the same boat. And this is why I almost feel bad when people ask me like, oh, Grace, like, because they all know I'm a nerd. Like,
mm-hmm.
look at what we do, you
Right,
know?
right.
Like they all ask me, oh my God, Grace, what do you think of Multiverse of Madness? And I've just been telling everybody, like, oh, go see it. Like, I don't want to say anything. But usually I'll even just give a little bit of like what, like, oh yeah, it was so good, or all of this. And I feel like I don't even want to say that and like be disingenuous, but I also don't want to give them my opinions because I do want people to kind of form their own. And if they do enjoy it, like I don't want to taint that for them. But it's like, but
Right.
this is the component that I think really pulled it to closer to like an 8. It's only because of the Sam Raimi like horror and scariness of this like as you were kind of slowly building up into this
Mm-hmm.
here, it was really good. Like she gets locked into the mirror dimension, and I do not know if this is correct or if I'm just kind of tying this into what if, but I was like, dude, did they already put her in this like mirror
And
dimension
that's that's
lock?
that's where I'm going to debate the internet, because people are assuming that that was the mirror dimension, right? And to me, it didn't even seem like she, because when we've seen people kind of go in, you've kind of seen that like kind of wall of the mirror and the person going through. Even Peter Parker went through that wall. But I didn't see her go into it. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't think that was the mirror dimension, simply for the fact of how easy it was for her to get out. I was so confused. That's issue number 3. We're counting. So issue number 3. If that was the mirror dimension, why is she the only one that knows how to get out when Strange couldn't get out in Spider-Man, and even the people that were taking the power of Dormammu couldn't get out in Doctor Strange 1? So in that, I'm already thinking, oh, Wanda, if this is the mirror dimension, Wanda is more powerful than Dormammu. And we don't even know Dormammu like that. Not yet. I'm sure you know him more from the comics, but say here, it's just like, okay, if this is the mirror dimension, now she's just using the reflection to get out. Why couldn't anybody else use a reflection?
See, that didn't bother me, but something, I'm actually kind of questioning it right now. I'm wondering if I'm quoting what it actually is called because I don't know if the mirror dimension and this crystallized sphere, because we see it in like the first, I think, introduction with Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme. I don't, are they different? Like, I'm trying to remember. And I know we're going to do part two, so we can always like revisit it, but it's, let's just say it is the mirror dimension. Like, I think that's just like, that just shows her wit. Like, I wasn't bothered by that. Like, that didn't, like, that didn't bother me too much. But I did write a note for myself just to kind of look into it because I'm wondering if the mirror dimension and that little crystallized thing is something different. But anyway,
I'm looking at like the credits of the first Doctor Strange just to get the name of Caecilius, right? So say Doctor Strange when he was initially fighting Caecilius, I feel like that was in the mirror dimension, correct? Straight from the sanctum, he put them in the mirror dimension, and then they traveled outside, or was
that
that
was, yeah, no, that was the mirror dimension. So that is, and that's what I'm questioning is like, is like that different than when he was inside this like crystallized, you know what I mean? Because it looks slightly different where it looks like just this crystallized formation around him.
right?
I'm a little confused on it. I'm gonna just call it mirror dimension for now, just to keep
Okay,
it clean. We
okay.
will come back and just give you guys a definitive kind of like outline for that. But I did like this, and I thought it was so cool how like they're in this room, and obviously there's reflections not just in like mirrors, but in like just items like this gong and like the water, and I just thought it was so creepy. Like I felt like I really did fall into just a horror movie because before you even see her crawl out of the gong like the freaking
Like a zombie or something.
zombie exorcist, I don't
Right.
know. Like you have this suspense buildup of you don't know where she's coming. You see her arm, you see her eye. It's creepy. Like it's. I was like, oh, this is like bring the legs up, just like hold and watch.
This is like you mentioned. This is to me what was to be expected. I was expecting Sam Raimi to go weird, and for me, he didn't disappoint. Just because we know what to expect from him from Spider-Man and the Evil Dead and every other thing that he's done, you know. So him doing this and then Wanda coming out crawling like I've seen that in the movie somewhere, and I think that person was dead. But all in all, when she did that, I was like, okay, the horror factor is there, right? She comes out, boom, and from there, that's when America and Strange escape through the many universes, right?
Yes, because she's obviously scared like all of us, and that is sufficient for her to open this portal. We do see them kind of jump through different dimensions. Nothing really special from apart from what we've already seen in the trailer. And then we fall into this is where we end up in Earth 838, correct?
Yes, but
Yes.
I'd like to pause right here just because I've done some digging, and I'm sorry just to kind of come off tedious right here, okay? But I've read that there's a distinct difference between the words universes and dimensions in the MCU, because we've got the dark dimension with Dormammu, and we've got a separate dimension in Shang-Chi. So they're going through separate universes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to come off
No, I'm not
and kind
upset
of
with
get
you
that off.
being a stickler because I kind of think this is a little bit because they do use the verbiage. I think, oh, dimension 838, dimension
They
this,
do?
and that. And they do. And not only that, Mysterio uses the same, no, Mysterio, I'm sorry. No,
Mysterio.
yeah, Mysterio, Quentin Beck. Like, he uses this verbiage when he's doing his fake little schmeal about how this is Earth X, Y, or what, this is dimension.
But
Oh no,
let's
he said,
let's
yeah, this is Earth Dimension 616 and Earth like 838, and I think they use the word dimensions also in this film. So I think this is a this. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think they're in the wrong because there should be like a distinction between that and then just calling, like yeah, just calling say like the dimension from where like the people from Shang-Chi are from.
right,
So
right.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be a stickler, but like now we're in a phase to where there Marvel is throwing a lot at us, okay? And even if they throw us the dark dimension in the first Doctor Strange, we know that to be uh I think we know that to be different, and we're gonna get further into that because that was part of the second post credit scene. If anything, we'll talk about that next Friday. But say when it comes down to uh, this, they're traveling through the different universes. We see you called it. I didn't see the cartoon universe in the trailer. I missed it, but we saw that. Is that different from the paint, or was there a cartoon dimension and there was a paint cartoon dimension?
I think I just saw what all like just in one, I think.
I think if there were, I think I may have saw two different 2D universes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And before we continue on that, just because I was starting to think something. So in the scene where back in Doctor Strange, like the first film, where the Sorcerer Supreme in that time is kind of explaining to Doctor Strange, she's like pulling him into that little trip that he goes on. She talks about multiple like a multiverse, multiple realities, and then dimensions. Like she uses it as if it's one and the same, using universe and dimension almost interchangeably.
Mm.
It We'll definitely revisit it just to kind of come on like a consensus together on like how, whether they are the same or they meant to be different. But that might actually set like a precedent of like they're maybe interchangeable terms and it's okay the way that they use it here, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I'm kind of just like going off the top of my head remembering from the film. But
Right.
moving on, we fall into this dimension 838. We'll just kind of call it the way that they use it in the film.
Mm-hmm.
You're bothered.
I am, just because just after our last show, I was with you 100% as far as now we're getting a little bit more mythical, and if we're going to talk about these Greek gods, then they're in a quote unquote different dimension. I wouldn't think that if anything, America can travel to that. I don't think America can travel to, let's quote unquote, the dimension of where uh Moon Knight went, of the underworld and all that. So I think if anything, I'm sorry, but like when it comes down to the verbiage, I'll stick with you there. But I think Marvel should, if anything, like you said, give us
Keep it
a
clean.
clear definition. Because if you're gonna call this the multiverse of madness and not the multidimension of madness, just stick with it. Don't just say have Christine say, "Oh, this is you're from dimension 616 and this is dimension 838." When now I'm confused. In this movie, I'm not gonna lie, I left confused. I was hoping to get some clarity here on the multiverse, but as of right now, I know we've stopped at a point here, but here's what I wanted, okay? I really wanted, if anything, yes, Doctor Strange, and we knew if Wanda was going to be bad, Doctor Strange and Wanda duking it out, right? But if that's going to happen, I would love something from the TVA, because right now that is a separate, totally different multiverse of madness in Loki than from what we got right here. Those are two separate multiverses of madness. And with that being said, um, here back to the story. We're here in A38. We make it. They go down a stroll of memory lane, and we kind of get the idea of this broken watch and where that came from, and where America came from, and accidentally sent her moms throughout the multiverse. Boom. We make it to Mordo. Let me bring Mordo up of A38 because initially the Mordo that we saw in the trailer, we thought that was the Mordo of 616, and that was different. This Mordo welcomed Strange in open arms. I was like, okay. He
He's
actually,
like surprised.
yeah.
It was so good. That was funny. That was really funny.
he likes Strange here in this universe. There's no beef. And even throughout the movie, when it came down to their fight scene, I would even agree with the same point to where he never disliked Strange. Steven was just more so trying to make him mad just to kind of get into
Yeah.
this fight. So Mordo of 838, I would say love Strange. Even though they
Yeah.
did what they had to do and before that happened, they were friends.
Yes.
So
And I think this, like them landing in this dimension, also kind of adds to that theme of like, you're always the one who needs to hold the knife, because the first thing he says is like, I gotta find myself because no one else can help me here.
right.
And like he isn't there anymore because, and he thinks that, obviously, because this is the way that this Earth is, perceives Doctor Strange to have died in battle, died a hero, all of that. This is like the theme of like either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the
Oh wow, we're
villain.
Batman. We're Dark Knighting it.
We're Dude, we're just pulling quotes left and right here.
Right.
Multiverse of madness.
Mm-hmm.
We're hopping cinematic universes.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Um, but this is where we've they're, because initially, Mordo brings them in and they're kind of having this conversation to try to figure out what's going on, and this is where Mordo discloses like, well, you know that's the worst she could have, that's like the least she could have done, is like just being able to manipulate different monsters, beings, demons of other dimensions to lure America into theirs. Like, he's like, that's like the lightest of things she could have done, because there's also what's the term for her using like another
Dream
one of
walking.
her dream walking. Yeah, this is
Mm-hmm.
where he explains the idea of dream walking.
Mm-hmm.
And a little quote that we kind of looked over that I think is pretty important for this movie is when Wanda says like, just remember, Strange, this is me being reasonable, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, right before she made her attack. Like, this scene is where we're like in parallel seeing her prepare to do like the dream walking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dream walking. And I thought it was kind of cool how they had this like metal rock music in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just was like, it was very like it was a cool scene. Like, I really did like that.
Well, let's say if uh just to kind of rewind with that quote of her saying that she's being reasonable, then if anything, she's a liar, and I didn't even like that just because even before that scene happened and we learn about her dream walking or whatnot, we already know her to now control the demon that killed Defender Strange and was chasing America
Hmm.
at the very beginning of the movie. So she hasn't been reasonable since the very beginning, since
No,
WandaVision.
but
You know what I'm
like,
saying?
I think it's an accurate. No, I think it's an accurate like quote for her to say, like, that's what she was meaning, because like she told Doctor Strange like, just to remember, like, this what I'm doing right now, this was me being like reasonable, because for her to do like the dream walking, like that interchange, like, let me, like, okay, yeah, it's one thing to draw like these beings and these demons from other dimensions to obviously lure America Chavez into her
Mm-hmm.
dimension, but you got to tell me that you don't think that what is about to happen to the Illuminati isn't a substantial increase in just the darkness that she falls in. Like, that is like the big divide. Like,
Let's
the
not
thing
let's not get there
beforehand,
yet
although it was
because
horrible.
I am gonna change the screen to that one background that you sent. But before we even get to that, okay, um, let's talk about the intro of the Illuminati because um, we get to the point to where Mordo, he spikes the tea, knocks him out. They wake up in the Illuminati. Let's call it a sanctum, right? Now, I kind of have like an image of the initial. I called it the speculated Illuminati, and that's what we had before, what was posted on Instagram. And now I have a kind of new image of the new Illuminati that we got. So, say with who we got. Thankfully, we didn't get Tom Cruise. Okay, uh, but if from wait, hold on. Before I even get there, we ended up getting. We did get Mr. Fantastic. We did get Captain Carter, and we did get Black Bolt. These are all the familiar faces that we've seen so far. We didn't get Killmonger. He was a part of that list that we had before. We got Professor X and Mordo. Now, we also didn't get.
Namor.
Oh, I didn't even have Namor in that image that we had before, but he's part of the Illuminati in the comics, right? We didn't get Namor,
Yeah.
and we didn't get now we're going to talk properties. We didn't get the Fox version of Mr. Fantastic. We got the brand new Krasinski, and from there, that's what everybody's kind of been hoping for. As far as Fantastic Four, the whole rumor of him being Mr. Fantastic, right? So if that is the case, if he's Mr. Fantastic here, and let's say if he's Mr. Fantastic, and that's still not confirmed, but let's say if he is
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Fantastic of the new Fantastic Four, then being that we have every other familiar face here that we know of, especially with the, let's say that's what, six total: Mordo,
Mm-hmm.
Professor X, Maria, Captain Carter, and Black Bolt. Then if we did get a Tony Stark, then it would have only made sense for it to be uh, Robert Downey Jr., being that there were no other variants of any of these other characters. Does that make sense?
I could buy that. Yeah. And honestly, I think if they would have brought in Tom Cruise, being that they didn't have any other cameos, it would have been like, this is what we got. Like having, I think John Krasinski's, hold on. And by the way, like I was like, don't you dare just skim over his name. Like this was
Mm-hmm.
huge. Like for us to get John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, this is what shook me in my seat. Like this is like it's happening. Like this is like when I saw. I mean, not to the degree, but this is a similar feeling than when I saw Andrew Garfield come through like the
Mm-hmm.
portal. Like this was an exciting moment because he comes through this like little like transportational little sphere above
Mm-hmm.
him or square, and the crowd just goes wild. Like this has been a fan like demand for so long. This was a huge fan service, and I am so happy that they did it. It's obviously still TBD if he's going to be the one we see in the Fantastic Four film that is, going to come
Right.
out down the road. I hope it is just because like it's just I love him. I love this man. I'm a big Office fan. I love him. Quiet Place.
All of
If we
it.
can get Emily
Right.
Blunt, all of it, all
Mm-hmm.
of it. If we can get Emily Blunt on board, like I mean, at this point, like I hope we get
And
it. Like
see, and being that we get this right, this is now giving everybody's like, okay, this is what we're hoping for. But as far as variants are concerned, I do want to kind of go back to Loki, in whatever, let's say, quote unquote dimension where they were fighting the beast, we got infinite number of different Lokis. A couple of them looked exactly the same, but a couple of the Lokis were different, right? Then we fast forward to Spider-Man: No Way Home. We get two other variants of Peter Parker. Okay, they don't look exactly like Tom Holland. They're the Peter Parkers that we know from the past. Now, here, if we're gonna get John Krasinski here, and then they give us some other actor as Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four, why even do the Krasinski cameo then?
it might even just be as fan service, honestly. Like this is why, like, yes, I'm so hoping that we get him in like the future films because I want more. I want more. Um, but if they were to cast somebody else, like it would be sad, but I wouldn't feel too offended by it because they gave us this fan service. And this is the film I'm saying, like this is the film and I expected more of that. Like I expected more just any like all of the theories people had, like I expected to see a lot of more in that because it's kind of a area to test like okay like how does the crowd respond to this, how do they like this character, who are we going to continue on. Being that he was the only one, I'm not sure if this is just fan service or if it's because he's meant to take on the mantle in future films, but being that Loki does set the precedent that variants don't always have to look the same, I wouldn't be offended if it was played by a different actor down the road.
And then we never
um
see
I'd
John
be
Krasinski ever again.
I don't want that to be the case,
Right. He's
but
such a lovable
like just
character, you
based,
know?
oh my god, like I love him. Like how you were judging me for fangirling over Oscar
Yeah,
Isaac,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like, girl, we're both fangirling here. Honestly, you can do that to me right now. You can say that in this
That's
moment. That's
hilarious.
cool.
That is hilarious.
I love him. But before we dive into, oh, and I think someone we kind of overlooked was Maria Rambeau as Captain
Right.
Marvel. I love this. I love this because we said it. We're like, dude, doesn't look like Monica and it doesn't look like Carol. And I don't think either of us really mentioned Maria. And she does is like the original. I think she takes on like the mantle of Captain Marvel, and I think she does also take the mantle of is it Photon?
No, it's
Whatever name they have in
Monica is
parentheses.
Photon, and Maria played Captain Marvel, I believe. Or no, Monica. It was Monica that
And
played both. Monica played.
and Maria.
Yeah,
Okay,
Maria was never like a Captain Marvel. I don't think.
what I'm saying is that Maria is like her nickname, and they do this on the plaque in
Oh, true, true, true,
WandaVision.
true.
I think is
I
Photon.
gotcha.
This is what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying. Yeah, but I like this a lot. I didn't expect this one. I like this a lot. I thought it was really cool to see her being like the Captain Marvel. Like in this case, it would have been like, oh, instead of Carol being the one to go up with Marvel, in that
Mm-hmm.
spaceship in that battle, it would have been her. And also we get Peggy Carter, uh, Captain Britain. We knew this was going to come. That was really cool to finally see her in just like the live action form, because I think we all really liked her playing that in What If.
Yes.
But before we get into anything
Yeah, I was
further
gonna be
from
like,
there,
stop right there.
cut it, cut it. Before we go any further, because I think we did scope over some really, really huge points before we even get to the introduction of the Illuminati. So let's like rewind a little
Mm-hmm.
bit from, just kind of the transition from Mordo in like the Sanctum Sanctorum into the Baxter Institute, because we overlooked that completely and it's big. So obviously, in the Sanctum Sanctorum, we get Strange and America knocked out, and so they actually get knocked out by what's called of like the sands of Nisanti. And Doctor Strange says it specifically. He's like, "Oh no, it's the sands of Nisanti," and then they knock out. This is the same thing they use actually for the cuffs to prevent them from using their magic or their powers to
Mm,
escape from those little like
the cells.
cubicles, if you
Yeah.
will. Yeah, the cells. There you go. And so when they wake up, we're in the Baxter Institute. Dr. Strange asks this Dr. Palmer like where they're at. This alone was a huge applaud in the audience because it meant yes, we are getting Mr. Fantastic. This is for
Mm-hmm.
sure. It's around the corner because many have like inhabited this like institute, but it's dominantly associated with the Fantastic
Mm-hmm.
Four. So that was like that little like nudge before switching into the Illuminati, which is really cool. And this is where we get like the official kind of breakdown of the dimensions and the labeling, and this is huge. So prior to this, when asked, um, let me just write this down. Prior to this, when asked about what dimension the MCU is technically, what it technically is, the response was that it was Earth 1 999999999, and the rationale behind it was because that's how many films or years they're hoping to do like the MCU for, which I thought was kind of cool. In the comics, the main timeline is Earth 616,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is where we definitively get that labeling for the MCU timeline that we've known thus far for the past like decade,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just a little callback, and I kind of mentioned this earlier. Quentin Beck, when we first see him, like, introduce himself to Peter Parker, he says, "There are multiple realities, Peter. This is Earth Dimension 616, and I'm from Earth 833." So it's just interesting that he, like, I mean, he got the number correct, but obviously, like, that was
Right.
a
Right.
flaw, like, that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
real. But it was really cool. And so just to kind of discuss a little bit of like the dimensions in the comics, so just some notable ones, like Miles Morales, he's in Earth 1610. We get the Gwen Stacy Spider Woman in Earth 65. Silk Spider Woman is in Earth 616. And it's interesting to me. Like I really like this. This excites me because it gives us an outline. It helps us kind of track certain events, certain characters, certain all of these things. And really, after this film, like it's very much pointing to this ultimate event, which is potentially going to happen, which is most likely going to be. I think it's called. Is it Secret Wars?
Yeah.
I think it's Secret
Yes.
Wars. Yeah, this is where basically all these dimensions pretty much battle it out. And it just excites me. So this is really cool, and I wanted to make sure to kind of revisit it before we move
Okay.
on.
I love it, and I now I just want to kind of go back to really fast forward to the part of Quentin Beck's introduction. So I'm gonna go check that out real quick. But
Yeah, 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 yeah.
say before we even go further here, okay? Before, and I'm by further I mean before Wanda shows up. Let's
Yes.
talk about the the fear of Doctor Strange from the Illuminati. Okay. Um, there is a brief flashback into um, the Illuminati defeating Thanos on Titan. It wasn't on Earth. It was clear that it was Titan, and in order like to take out Thanos, I think Strange he used the Darkhold and he was quote unquote corrupted, and that was like the reason for him having to go. You know, so um, where we are right now, okay, especially in this flashback to Titan, the whole, let's say, monkey wrench that threw me through a loop is um on Titan, Professor Xavier's there, and being that Xavier's there, that is already establishing that 838 is a universe that has mutants. Not just one, not just Professor X, but it is the universe
All of
of
them.
mutants. So Thanos has arrived. Thanos is a threat. And instead of bringing mutants, like a team of mutants, you bring Professor X and the rest of the Illuminati, which it's I get you succeeded in taking out Thanos, but why not give us other mutants, even if they're like dead on Titan? Like unfortunately, Thanos and his army took him out. You know,
Oh, that would have been so. Ooh, that would have been such a cool cameo. Just seeing everyone dead on the floor, like
and the people
that
who
would have been
survive
cool.
form the
Or
Illuminati.
just
You
them.
know, why not give us that? Instead, it's just like you get dead Thanos to the right, and it's time to kill Doctor Strange. Get him out of here. You know?
That would have been, dude, that would have been so cool. Honestly, like that, I would have loved that. And just kind of discussing the Illuminati and just kind of like the way that they're structured and a little bit of the confusion of like, okay, well, why is it that there were just these characters here? If where were the other Avengers? Where were the other X-Men? Like, did they already die in battle? And if they did, it would have been cool to kind of see that as a cameo here, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, but in the comics, essentially, like the Illuminati is this, collection of representatives of different groups, right? So we have Inhumans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black
Mm-hmm.
Bolt is the leader of
Correct.
the Inhumans. We have Namor for the like Atlanteans. We have Iron Man would be for like the Avengers. Xavier for the X-Men.
Fantastic for the
Reed Richards
Fantastic
for the
Four.
yeah. There you go.
Gotcha.
All of that.
Mm-hmm.
All of that. And essentially, is like this organization, like they kind of serve almost like the United Nations or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, in that they converse and coordinate together so that their respective groups can therefore be much more efficient and effective in executing whatever it is that they're trying to do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Here, it's almost as if the team is just an assembled team, like
Correct.
nothing more than
Right.
that, which is a little disappointing. Not that, because it is a little different, the comics, which is, not always
Right.
bad, but also because we came in thinking that they would be a higher authority. Like we even question if maybe they would be, are they above the
Mm-hmm.
TVA? Are they in alignment with the TVA when it comes to rank? Like that was a discussion we had, and it's very evident that they're not. Like they're just like kind of a braggy version of the Avengers that are kind of holier than
Yeah.
thou. Like the moment they said we can take care of your witch, I was like, dude, you guys are gonna die. Like it's just like
I was so
so
like I
it
was
was
heated.
interesting.
I was so heated when it was just like, yo, he is telling them someone with the dark hold is coming, and they're like, don't worry about it. We're more worried about you.
Yeah,
We're more worried about why you're here in this universe.
dude, so frustrating. It is so frustrating. And so they're very arrogant. And yes, like I believe the Illuminati in the comics have some arrogance to it. Like I think that's very like paralleled, but this is to severity that it's almost like, dude, like you're gonna get your ass kicked right
Mm-hmm.
now. And also it's like, how dare you? Like this is not just a me. I think the Wanda in their world is like is just very different. Like I know like she obviously exists, right? We're gonna kind of get to that in a bit.
That Wanda is
But
in
me,
Westview. She's chilling. Her kids are there. You
yeah,
know, she is not a
retired. Yeah,
threat at all. You know what I'm saying? She's not. They're not
it's
worried about her.
very
Yeah.
different. Yeah, it's very different. And by the way, so I just want to mention this because obviously we're going to kind of shift into Westview in a minute. Um, so when we get that little flashback sequence where they're obviously like taking care of Doctor Strange and we see that Thanos is, dead on the floor and we see the Infinity Gauntlet, they do not have the mind like stone. They don't have the mind gem.
Mm.
Meaning that in this universe, like Vision is probably alive and well and probably at work at that one like telemarketing place or whatever,
Nah, I
like
don't
he's
like that.
alive in this.
I really
I think
don't.
no, but I think he
Like
is. I mean,
tell me what makes sense. I mean, I like I say I don't like that, but I do. I like the idea if he is over in Westview somewhere in black and white doing his little computer thing, what we saw in WandaVision, cool, right? But let's say uh Enter Strange meeting the Illuminati. He is escorted by Ultron bots, right? Now, being that that's the case, to me that means Tony Stark succeeded in creating a shield around the world, and there was no need to create Vision because Ultron works. Ultron didn't get corrupted by the quote unquote Mind Stone, and Ultron is totally run by Jarvis. So I would think here in this universe, there is no Vision because Ultron works here.
see, the thing with that is that's assuming that Tony Stark was the one who created the bots and that he created them for that same reason that we see in the MCU, which is maybe not the case because in the comics it's very different. It's Hank Pym who
True.
makes them. It's like a completely different thing. So we don't know that. We don't know that. And Wanda, at least in like West, or at least in our timeline, like, the reason she wants family also is like it's vision, right? Like when you have a partner, like that's a step a lot of people take. It's like they want kids. Like this is like the next step for a lot of people in their relationship. And so I don't see her making that sharp like stepping point if Vision wasn't there because it just doesn't follow a lot of like the I'm gonna call it lore of the comics, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. And so I'm just like looking this up super quickly.
While you look that up, let me throw
Uh
this at you.
yeah.
Because with everything that you said, and Thanos is dead, and he is uh, lying with the gauntlet without the Mind Stone. In our timeline, the Mind Stone was the very last stone he got in Wakanda before succeeding, right? So let's say, if anything, um, who's to say that actually, no. You could be right. If Vision is still alive, he never made it to Titan. So
He never
yeah.
made it to Wakanda because he obviously like wasn't, like I feel like I mean maybe he could have still been injured during that
Mm-hmm.
case, but obviously they didn't win. He didn't get the Soul Stone. Like I think he's probably still alive
Okay.
somewhere. We wouldn't see him, which I'm fine with because I think that would have maybe muddled the story a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Because obviously, it's like we would have felt the type of way. So I think it made sense for him not to be there. But I feel like there's more signs to him being present in this world than not, and that's more of a tidbit than like necessarily like a plot
Wait,
point. But I thought that was kind of cool to
you
point out.
said that we would feel some type of way if we did see him.
Yeah, like I think it would just kind of steer the story too much. I think like so that's what I'm saying. I think it's cool to think that I think he does live in this dimension, and I think that's true. I think it was a good choice to not actually see him
But
though, like if that makes sense, like in the House of
here's
Westview.
what doesn't make sense. Okay. Um, I feel like if anything, give us a Vision that knows A38's Wanda, because no matter what, Vision, as quoted at the beginning of the movie, is familiar with the multiverse. So with that, I'm assuming all Visions in every single universe knows what's going on, or not what's going on, but knows more about the multiverse than our main characters. So why not bring 838 Vision into the mix just so we can get a better feel of the multiverse?
Well, I mean, Wanda makes comments that he had his theories. It doesn't say that he was necessarily the expert of it or that it's like an infinite thing that all of them are further aware than everyone else of the
Mm-hmm.
multiverse or more a detailed awareness. Um, I mean, if they would have added it in a way that makes sense, like sure. But the way that the story played out with the film we got, I think it was a good choice to not have like a visual cameo
Actually,
of him, at least
I
in
retract what I
Westview.
said. I said Wanda was a liar. She lied about Vision having his theories. Vision didn't have theories.
So
Wanda lied about it. She knew she's
I
the yeah,
retract.
she's the only one that knew about the multiverse, and that was because of the
Oh
dark
my
hold.
God. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's see. Where were we? Because I know we kind of took a little bit of a
We're
detour
in the
there.
Illuminati now.
Okay.
At this point, like we got their reasonings behind why they think uh Doctor Strange is more of a threat than Wanda, which didn't make sense. But uh, back to problem whatever number I'm on. Wanda shows up. Okay, we knew she was coming. Of the Illuminati, let's just not send the wielder of magic in their universe. Let's just send everybody else to fight Wanda. You know what I'm saying? We have a sorcerer supreme on the council of the Illuminati, but no, let's just have him chill back with Doctor Strange. You know what I'm saying? And not try to fight the threat that's tearing that place apart. That's another thing that didn't make sense to me. Let's just throw Mr. Fantastic where I'm just like, all right, this guy stretches. How you gonna stop that? You know?
Bottom line, they were arrogant, which, so like being that they're just arrogant and they don't understand the threat that's coming towards them because they're so focused on Doctor Strange. I'm not bothered by like how like, um, I don't know, how
Let's say
horrible like they
misguided. You know what I'm saying?
split up,
Yeah.
misguided any of that. Like that's definitely what I was looking for because yes, if you understood the threat that was coming, there's no way you would have left Mordo with cuffed up Doctor Strange. Like you would have left somebody else just to watch over him.
Right.
Captain Marvel, Captain like Britain, any of them could have been sufficient to detain them. Honestly, Charles Xavier could have just held them with his mind if he wanted to keep him in the
Right.
on the sidelines while you deal with
Mm-hmm.
Wanda. So they just did not understand the threat, and it's very evident. And I this is a huge threshold, so I'm not going to get there until we're both ready to get there, like in terms of like that scene. And I know what we know what we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, but I think it was just the pure arrogance. So it makes sense to me, and I think it's just frustrating to see a group who's supposedly these brightest minds not grasp the severity of the
Brightest
situation,
minds not
or
being
even
bright. They're not. They truly
no,
are. You know what I'm saying? Like say
or even to be sufficient to foresee. Like Doctor Strange just told us that Wanda is doing X, Y, and Z. We know she's going to kick it up a notch in her efforts to get these kids. She's going to like dream. What is it?
dream
Sleep,
walk.
dream walk. I can't get this term. Dream walk. Why don't they get the Wanda of their universe and be like, hey, we suspect this is going to happen. Let's put these dampening cuffs on you. We're going to put you in the cell until we can figure it
I'm
out.
sure
Like,
Mordo could have
come
just
on, guys.
let me go get Wanda real quick. You know what I'm
Right after he knocked out
saying?
Doctor Strange.
Right.
Like right after he knocked out Doctor Strange. Okay, we need to assess the threat that Doctor Strange poses, but we should probably take this thing seriously because if this Doctor Strange is looking for help in our universe, maybe there's something to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Here, Wanda,
Maybe there's
drink this
something.
tea real quick. Hey, I got you some tea. And she wakes up in the cell and her powers are gone. You know what I'm saying? Why not do that?
Yeah. It's like it's just sometimes it feels like it should have been so simple, but honestly it's just the arrogance, and it's insane to me. But I think well, I wouldn't say we looked over, but we're kind of in the midst of getting to is when we see Wanda possess the Wanda of Dimension
Mm-hmm.
838. This is another one of those really beautifully orchestrated Sam Raimi scenes. And this is only like scratching the surface again. Like this was already really good. To see her take the body, and then it's witchcraft. It's
Mm-hmm.
witchcraft. It's creepy. It's scary. It's like, oh, like it was well done. It was super well done. And I think this is the scene where she's obviously walking out because she's has a mission. She knows what she needs to do, why she's
Mm-hmm.
there, and she hears the voices of like her children. That little pause of like that is something I want maybe would have been able wanted to see more of.
Yeah.
That little moment of like humanity to suggest that WandaVision, the show, wasn't just fully in vain and there's no remnants of
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, because we did get that at the end, which I did like too, but the fact that it's so minimal is sad. But I love that just little moment. And Emily Olsen is just an amazing actress and she did an amazing job playing Wanda,
Mm-hmm.
period. And I feel like they just could have done so much more with it. But this is there. I think this is where we transition into I think there's no other tiptoeing around it.
Okay.
Do you have anything else before
Nah,
we?
I'm putting the blood red image up real quick.
So this comic that we're putting up right now, this is one of the issues of the Scarlet Witch comic book series. Nothing in particularly a reference to this. It just seemed like a cool backdrop to give to you guys for what we're about to
Mm-hmm.
discuss. This is the gore of all gore for this film. Sam Raimi stamped just brutal death of the
Mm-hmm.
Illuminati. And it kicks off with Black Bolt. And this again is just that arrogance. I think it's John. Actually, before we even get to like the full actions of it, the conversation that um, Reed Richards has with Wanda alone, I think that was pretty like scary for her to be like, oh, first of all, so he makes mention of like my children, this is and that, right? Like I understand, I'm a parent myself, like trying to empathize with her, and he's like, oh, do your children have a mom? Like, is the mom alive? And he says yes, which I think either is like a nudge at one or two of two things. It's either a nudge of like, oh, what? Oh, you better believe, like, um, the invisible like woman is
Mm-hmm.
present. She
Mm-hmm.
exists. Is it Emily
Mm-hmm.
Blunt? You know, like just in the back end of like, don't you worry, guys, we hear
Mm-hmm.
you. I'm hoping that's the case. Or even like it's just a nod of Reed Richards' lineage because they reference him having kids, which we didn't see in any prior of the Fantastic Four films. So it's kind of new. And being that Kane the Conqueror, right? Like his is like a variant of like Reed Richards lineage down the line. Like that's kind of cool because it kind of suggests that lineage and that like just him having like offspring. And so it kind of is like on the back end of just like thinking like, okay, well, we know what the big bad is coming around the corner. I thought it was kind of a cool nudge to either of those things to kind
Well,
of
that
allude
makes
to.
sense just because thinking back, I think in Loki, uh, he remained. He says that he is from a time which is I think 300 years beyond of what we know. So
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, I don't know how many generations. Just let's just say 6 or 7 generations of Richards. I wouldn't put that too far behind to say why not put it out there that Reed and Sue Storm had kids just because we've only known Reed and Sue Storm from say the first movie they weren't together, and then the second movie they got married, but they didn't really have a family because the whole movie was about fighting the Silver Surfer. So give
Yeah.
us an older Reed Richards, a little bit more mature, where him and Sue Storm are married and they do have kids, and then later on down the line introduce us to the Kang variant.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a nice little background s of like world building, which I thought was really cool. And then it's just like this, like these one-liners from Wanda, like I do like where she's just like, well, good because this way they have someone to raise them once you're dead. Like, ooh, oof, like that was sharp, you know? And I'm just saying, like that was like I was like, oh Lord, like, and this is I was telling my partner, I was like when we left, like I was kind of telling him how I felt about this scene because this is like two of my loves just kind of like going against each other literally head on because I'm like a huge Office stan. I love
Mm-hmm.
Jim. I just love John Krasinski, period. And then I love my Wanda. And so it was just like I don't know where my heart lies right now.
But
Um,
Jim messed it up. He messed it up for me.
dude,
He's like, Wanda, you don't want to do this. I got my man's mouth right here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
the
why would you?
arrogance.
Why would you? He's like, yo, this is my secret weapon. His voice. Check it out. Will Smith in it. You know, but like, just like, check out my man. And then obviously she now wielder of magic that controls reality pulled a matrix and just erase the mouth.
Ugh.
And with the mouth erased, Black Bolt. Listen, I gave Black Bolt a chance. I actually watched the Inhuman series on
Mhm.
ABC, and I already kind of knew that if he talked, boom, that's the end of whoever's in front, right? So you don't have a mouth, Black Bolt. Let's try to talk. You know what I'm saying? Let's try to use our voice. Like, either
Think
you
about
mess your face
it.
up completely, or what happened happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh my God, this was a sharp turn, right? Like obviously this was like a build up. We're like all tense in our seats, like what's gonna happen? She just threatened his life, like and yeah, like I thought it was. I'm like, you don't do that. Like first of all, you called out your number one man. You called out exactly how it's gonna happen with yes, yes, Will Smith in it, and but wow, like the sharp turn that this scene took with just like because you see Black Bolt from here, and then she's like with what mouth, and then you see like horror, and then him like he's just overwhelmed and freaking the f out, and so it wasn't like I don't think he was even trying to talk. I
He
think
was
he was just
freaking
like
out, like
like
screaming,
screaming,
ah,
freaking out,
yeah.
like oh my god. And this is where just ensues like that was the most shocking because it was the first one and it just set the and then it was just like
Maybe
destruction
if it were,
to
oh, I'm
see.
sorry. Maybe if it were me and like if Mr. Fantastic does that and my mouth goes erased, instead of freaking out, I'd be like looking at Mr. Fantastic like my mouth's gone now.
Come on,
Like
bro.
this is like
Yeah.
come on.
Dude, and you know something? I think that is also what made this scene so like shocking and horrifying and scary because I think our emotions reflected Black Bolt's reactions because he was just terrified, and I think that's why there was such an emotional pull on
Mm-hmm.
that. And like I'm telling you, this is the scene. This is like the 10 minute like section that makes me feel like guys you could have done this for the whole film. Like this is the scene that left me gasping and like like I think I've mentioned this before, my boyfriend doesn't let me hold his arm anymore in the movie theaters because I'm just like yanking and like moving around in my chair. That's what this did to me, like to see Reed Richards, this huge fan pick that we've been waiting for so long, just get killed
Mm-hmm.
off in the manner that he
Mm-hmm.
does, like being string cheesed, torn apart, and then ultimately just pop of the head, like horrifying. Like these are like I don't think I ever like was ready to see these heroes be just killed off in this severity. Like we thought Infinity War, we thought Endgame was, you know, crossing the line of something we never really explored. Like this just changed the
Let me
stakes.
ask you a question. Being that when it comes down to the Illuminati, let's put the physical dust to the side and let's talk about uh, Reed Richards and uh, Black Bolt just for a moment. In her using that, her powers were almost highly reflective of what the reality stone
Yeah.
does, you know. So do you think uh just hypothetically the powers of the reality stone and chaos magic are one and the same?
I guess you could say that, or just similar. Like I do think in WandaVision when they're really explaining what the sorcerer or I'm not the sorcerer supreme, the Scarlet Witch, like and what she's capable of doing, like it's reality bending, it's like just craziness. Like this is very much reflective of that. And in the comics, that's what she does. Like this is House of like she, because in House of M, she basically either kills off all these Avengers and X-Men and or like she throws them into these just completely different realities than what they are while she's trying to live in this world where her kids actually exist. Like it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can compare them to the reality stone. Like, and I think this visually looks very similar to when we see Drax and Mantis just kind of like cube
Mm-hmm.
apart, in Infinity War.
I'm now thinking I don't know, this is random, this is off topic. I'm going back to Infinity War. um I feel like on Titan, Strange tried to put uh, Thanos in a mirror dimension, and then Thanos just took his gauntlet and was like, bah, and then like broke it. So I don't know. That scene kind of
That was
brought
cool.
brought the brought it up in my mind in terms of if that was just like the reality stone, just kind of getting the mirror dimension out of there. It's like, nah, I control the reality over here.
And you know something, like obviously, like Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity Stones, that used to be like whoever wields that, this is the most powerful being. TVA, all of this now, this is it's and they don't even exist. Like we're in a whole different ballpark. Like the ranking of powers are so different at this
Mm-hmm.
point. And I would even say like the way that we're learning of the Scarlet Witch, like she probably trumps like what the Infinity Stones can do. Obviously on an Endgame, like she didn't, I think, have that full capacity unlocked just yet, right? We really saw that kind of happen in WandaVision and then
But
obviously
we
here.
saw,
But
let's say we saw that in Infinity War with her one on one with Thanos. Like, say if she didn't have her extra arm to try to kill Vision behind her, she was pretty much holding off Thanos with her magic. And let's say if she were the Scarlet Witch, then I don't think the Gauntlet would have had a chance, like
that's
to
what I'm
even
saying.
get
Exactly.
Vision.
Yeah, and like she was already established as this incredibly powerful being that she can remove an infinity stone while taking on Thanos at the same time. Like that, yes, absolutely. Like that's already an example of how strong she was before this like, mark and transition into the Scarlet Witch. So at this point, I feel like it's safe to say that her powers are beyond that. And so that being said, and this kind of a this like observation you made with Thanos basically just like being like, no mirror dimension, I'm gonna flick you
Mm-hmm.
away. I think this is where you justify her being able to escape the mirror dimension earlier in this
Mm.
film. Like that alone, I think is enough to justify like her ability to do that,
Yeah. Okay.
You trumped
I
your
sure did.
own observation.
Yep.
You trumped your own trump.
Yep.
And continue on with this just like grotesque and horrifying scene. We see Captain Carter just, is there a word for when you get cut in half? There's amputated when you get like the limbs, you get
Mm-hmm.
decapitated if it's your head. We're gonna have to come up with the
Yeah.
word. But you don't see it, and it's almost scarier to not see it because you realize what just
Mm-hmm.
happened and you're just like,
But
like what?
in seeing that though, that's where, like, if it wasn't clear now, now it's clear. I mean, if it wasn't clear before, it's clear now. This isn't the Captain Carter of What If, because I doubt they're gonna end her story with just getting chopped in half. So
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, I don't think any of the characters we've seen here, even like the dark Doctor Strange we see later in this film, I don't think any of them are from What If
no,
because there's an infinite,
right, but see, and that's what we were as a fan thinking there was a connection,
Hmm.
especially from seeing the Super Bowl trailer. We're thinking this is the Doctor Strange where he says in the trailer, this got out of hand. He didn't even say that line here. It was the Illuminati that actually
Yeah.
said, "Oh, the 838 Strange said things got out of hand." I was like, okay, so they kind of took that from there. So that eliminates that. That's not that strange from What If. And then the Captain Carter, with all of these cameos, it's like, I won't speak for anybody else but myself. I was thinking that, okay, Feige is now making the Multiverse of Madness the connection point to everything else that we've seen in the past. And I'm thinking, being that we got the Guardians of the Multiverse, that this is now kind of folding into that. Why would the Illuminati,
Hmm.
that is fully aware the of the multiverse from the previous Strange, like before we even saw this movie, we thought that this is the highest of the high when it comes to council, right under the tribunal that you mentioned. So
Hmm.
I'm thinking that this is the Peggy Carter from the Guardians of the
From,
Multiverse.
yeah. I think if it was that governing body that we assumed that the Illuminati would be in this scenario, then I think it would have made sense for that to be the case. And I think I would have definitely felt similar to you, where it's like, okay, well, it would have been cool to have it be like one of the guardians of the multiverse be part of the council. Like that would make total sense,
Mm-hmm.
especially since this team is supposed to be like a compilation of a lot of leaders of other teams. So that if that was the situation, then totally I agree. Being that they really just gave us a very different sense of the Illuminati here, then I think it flies for it to just be a different
Yeah,
variant because, in the world of variants, like you can kind of do whatever you want. And, they definitely did sacrifice this world, like variants of the Illuminati to give us this very House of M feel of like Wanda is just killing everybody because she does that in the
right.
comics. And it's, yeah.
We were
So no, I see
we
your
were
point.
assuming that this Illuminati were leaders from different universes, but every member here is all from 838. You know, that's what we got. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what we thought. And I thought that would have been cool. And because, we were talking about like, would they be higher ranking the TVA? They're definitely nowhere
Mm-hmm.
near that type of ranking. So at least that's clear, and that kind of helps us still in that whole outline of where does the triage or where does the hierarchy lie with this. And just because we're on the topic right now, before we transition more into the film, so obviously TVA is definitely higher ranking than these different entities that we've
Definitely
met so
now.
far. Um,
Now it's clear.
yes, oh for sure, they're even gone. So even if they
Right.
were gone, but we talked about the Living Tribunal, right, in our very last breakdown of the trailers before heading into watching Multiverse
Mm-hmm.
of Madness and coming to here. And so in the scene where they're kind of jumping from different dimensions, you do see this three-headed figure, and I did see it clearly in the film. And it was super quick, super, super quick, but a lot of people are suspecting this could be their first glimpse of the Living
Mm-hmm.
Tribunal. Even if it's not, though, because I did rewatch Doctor Strange, the first one, like a week or
Mm-hmm.
two ago. My boyfriend mentioned Grace. There is a mention. Mordo says these are. Hold on, I'm gonna quote it because I think I have it on here. Hold on. Okay. He says this is the staff of the Living Tribunal when he's showing the relics to Doctor
Mm-hmm.
Strange. So we know that there is like a little like confirmation of the Living Tribunal being part of this scheme. And if that's true, then yes, they are the top ranking, the ultimate, the most superior like authority in all of the not just MCU but the multiverse and everything. So I just wanted to kind of give that because we definitely talked about it last time, and I wanted to give some of that definitive statement, especially now that we know the Illuminati is not really part of that ranking
After
system.
yeah, I'm not gonna just go off and say that just because just based off of how this movie ended, there could be a living tribunal in every universe. You know, every being that the Illuminati is now apparent to just not be as effective as we thought they were going to be. Who's to say that Mordo is referencing the living tribunal of 616? You know, I'm not like
See,
I like say I would love to just be like, yes, I'm with you. But after whoever wrote this, because I'm not gonna put this on Raimi, I'm gonna say whoever wrote this, nothing is clear. Nothing is clear at all as far as where we are in Phase 4.
I totally get the lack of confidence, especially with our uh like our expectations of the Illuminati and what we thought it was going to be. However, I really do not think that they would do something like that to the Living Tribunal, being that this is like it's not like a simple statement that said this is known. Like this is huge. Like they would not diminish what the living tribunal is because it's not just like the ultimate authority within a universe. It is of the multiverse. In some comics, and even they even kind of structure it in a funny way where it's actually meant to be like Stan Lee,
Mm-hmm.
because Stan Lee creates all these things. You know what I mean? In some comics, it kind of plays out that way. Obviously, I don't. They're not going to do that
Mm-hmm.
here. But the high, like, I'm just gonna put this up. So, because I have like, hold on, I have like a little thing where I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
create the hierarchy of
Thank
different
you.
different
Thank you for
beings,
doing
different
that.
entities. You're welcome. So I have like I did do some research on the Living Tribunal prior because I expected to maybe see them or just get an idea of what, if they exist in this world as of yet. Um, so the they call it the monotheistic supreme god of the Marvel Omniverse. His name is One Above All. This is basically like the highest being, and he is part of like the living tribunal. He's the sole master of the cosmic overseer, the living tribunal. Like this is not just like this is one being, this is one
Mm-hmm.
entity overlooking everything, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so it's okay, not it's not the conception of any religious deity like the Greeks, Egyptian, or like the Norse mythology, anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's above everything. Um, of Earth 616 and all its alternate realities. So if it exists in this, they would not treat it in a different way. And if they did, like this would be like illegal.
The only,
Like they would
you
not
know
do
what?
that, you know?
Say I will be. I'm just going to be the other side of that coin, just because I've, like you mentioned, I lost that confidence, and right now, the only leading being for me right now in the multiverse is Airsham and any other celestial in his race. You know what I'm saying? He's the only one that, as of right now, like we've seen, we've seen how big he is. We've seen maybe a hint of his actual power, and as of right now, even though I doubt he's the real threat of this saga, he's the only one right now to really give us a threat, because I know we're not talking about the end yet, but I didn't really get resolution here, you know. I know we're kind of coming up on the 2 hour mark, and I don't want to.
That's all right. That's all
Okay.
right. We're definitely gonna not gonna like I think cross the threshold of this
Okay.
slaughter. I think we'll
Okay.
end it there in terms of like the happenings of the
Yeah.
film. But like going like continuing on the conversation of like I like I said like before I even brought up the living tribunal, like you're so in your right to be hesitant and trusting how they will like represent these entities down the
Right.
road because of this film. Um, However, and as at this point in terms of what we've definitively seen in the film and explained, yes, like Ursh and the judge, like these celestials that we met in Eternals seem to be the highest like beings of our universe. And even them, like they're labeled as like mid-level judicial entities. So whether it's the living tribunal or something else in this, the way that they showcase it in the
Mm-hmm.
MCU, we've still yet to meet like the high authority of all of this. And being that I think we're getting this bigger world building in this phase beyond what we've known prior, right? In like the Infinity
Mm-hmm.
Saga. That's why I'm gonna keep keeping notes. I actually have like this whole thing of like, okay, these are entities in like the comics, and if there's any basically like presence in the MCU of these people. So I'm gonna keep track so we can, as they continue to build the world, we can also be that sense of clarity for you guys, because if we're confused, we know you are, so don't you worry, we've got all of you guys.
Yeah, because my mind was just, even before, again, the post credit scene. Even then, my mind was still kind of just everywhere. And let's say, kind of just to wrap up the Illuminati, we see the deaths of Captain Carter, and then Captain Marvel put up a decent fight, but then from there, I think we did get a clear power ranking there, because there's kind of been a debate as far as who's strong, who's the strongest. Uh, and Strange was up there, Wanda was up there, and Captain Marvel was up there, you know. And we saw in this universe, uh, Captain Marvel was no match for the Scarlet Witch, but now that put some stake into Doctor Strange being up there in terms of power rankings, because we'll talk more about it later. But here, this is where we see Strange of 616. He he wielded some dark magic and he became victorious. So this kind of almost justified the fact for me, to where there's a reason why the Illuminati should be more worried about Strange than Wanda. Yes, it's their arrogance to not really focus on Wanda, but it validates why they were so fearful of Strange.
Yeah, because that's what they've experienced, and they've only known their version of Wanda, which is very different. They're like, oh, like mom Wanda, like I can take care of her,
Mm-hmm.
like we can handle that. Um, so it's like you can understand their ignorance to some extent,
Right.
you know? But no, absolutely. Like, I do see what you're saying. And in terms of like the power ranking, I think I actually wrote it down because I have a section of like, so it's entities and then beings
Mm-hmm.
slash
Mm-hmm.
species, but I don't have individual like people, and I'm gonna add that into the ranking as
Mm-hmm.
well. Um, and Charles Xavier is definitely someone who like we kind of see as a very high ranked
Oh, not
individual, you
anymore.
know, especially within the X-Men. Not anymore. Not anymore. Whoa. Like, okay.
Bothered. I was bothered, but continue. You
Like,
can see it in my face. I don't even want to
no.
talk about Charles Xavier.
I'll talk about it. Okay, before we get into his passing, so when we see him roll out, literally, on the scene, and as we're meeting the Illuminati, not only do we get him in his yellow like chair that you see in the cartoon, you also get like a small remnants of the theme song or intro song of that
Da-na-na-na-na.
same cartoon
I cheered.
series.
Nobody
That was
cheered
dope.
super loud in the theater, but in my mind, I was like, "Yeah." But
Yes, that was me with like all the other stuff.
right.
Yes, 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 yes. And what was I gonna say? I had it written down. Oh, okay. So that's his side. That was really cool. My boyfriend called it out. He's freaking out. He was like much like you. He was just gonna see like, but to see Charles Xavier enter the mind of Wanda, right? And he's trying to get like the Wanda of this universe out of like essentially this like
Prison of
she's
Sokovia.
piled in the prison of all everything as Sokovia, all her traumas really. Sokovia, you see things like from like her being trapped with like the Stark, all of that storyline and everything
That's
like
still
that.
Sokovia because that's where she's from.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like not just like yes, we're agreeing. I think we're just saying it differently. Yes, 100%. We
Yeah.
continue. Um to see her just come in and then that's it of Charles Xavier. I'm like, well, I'm done. Like she's just who's gonna destroy her? Like I'm done.
We're talking Charles Xavier to where movies aside, even in the uh, X Men '97 series, he was the most powerful mind. There may have been like one or two others, and I forgot what episode it was, but they all gathered together to kind of make like whatever the Eternals made, like a hive mind or whatnot. But to come here and we see him yellow hover chair. I didn't notice it then, but I saw it on the internet after I watched. They pointed out he's wearing the green suit that he wore in that series. I'm like, okay, this isn't James McAvoy. This is the Almighty Xavier. That is kind of almost, I wouldn't say leading the Illuminati, but he's there. He's there top tier, right? So he enters the mind of Wanda, tries to get old Wanda out, and in this whatchamacallit, while he's inside her mind, he's walking around, he's moving around, he's not paralyzed. Why not, try to move some rubble to help get her out? You could do something, but yet you
Come
try to
on, you
pull
can
her
walk
through.
here.
Yeah, you can pull her. You're just trying to pull her through, and of course, slow red smoke arises, and enter evil Scarlet Witch to just 2 seconds snap. And I was like, fam, for one, being that you're doing this mentally, you should have a feel for if somebody's coming up behind you in your mind. You know what I'm saying?
This is
Right,
your
this is
realm, you know?
this is your matrix. You made this, But that it was for me another waste. I feel like everything, a lot of the whole Illuminati was a waste to me. I'm sorry.
I think that's what it was meant to serve, because that's what she does in like the major storyline of like House of M. Like I think that's what it was meant to serve. I don't mind it because that's I think, being that this is a multiverse, like I don't want to say they're disposable, but that's kind of how they use them, which I understand because I like all these characters. Like I'm telling you, when I saw that happen to Charles Xavier, I'm like, I'm done. I don't want this anymore. Like it was just it's crazy. And I mean, this is what like the third time we see this man die. Like, Is it ever going to be enough?
When
Like,
did we see
are
him? We
they ever
saw
going to
him. Oh,
spare
he
us?
died in X3. Did he die? When was the?
Wolver and Logan.
Oh, he did die in Logan. Damn,
Yeah.
damn. Logan, clone Logan killed him, and now, Patrick Stewart. You should know, like, if you're in an X Men movie, there's now more
You're
of a
going to get
chance
killed off.
you're out of here. He's like, okay.
Do you know how traumatizing it is to go through three Charles Xavier deaths? Snip, snap, snip, snap. It's a lot.
And it's not
Like,
even
it's
like
a
a
lot.
James McAvoy death. It's like all Patrick Stewart. Like James McAvoy, he hasn't he hasn't died yet, you know. But so far, yes.
Um,
Yeah, you made
it's
yep.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. But like back that little like tidbit we mentioned of like the yellow chair and like the music from the animated
Mm-hmm.
series. So the like Earth 92131 is the like identifier for the Earth of like the animated series. So a lot of people are saying like maybe this is like what he's meant to resemble. Obviously, we know this is Earth 838, like as we're seeing it in the MCU. But there's like too many call-ins to suggest that this is something like, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's like be saying that maybe like the events you see in like the animated series are similar to this, if that makes sense, or have existed in this world. That's one of the things I saw online, and I thought that was kind of
Yeah.
cool. Doesn't matter now because he's
Yeah.
gone,
It
but
doesn't.
just wanted
It
to share that.
really
I just wanted to share
doesn't.
that.
It doesn't matter. Ugh, I'm so disappointed. Um, did you want to have a stopping point here? The death of the
I
Illuminati.
think this is a really good, yeah, I think this is a really good stopping
Okay.
point. I mean, hopefully we can wrap this up for you guys in like our next in our part two. But if this needs a part three, you know what? And honestly, I think it's just because we're bitter and we want to make sure it's known.
Well, I feel like we've covered.
But
Let's say if we've covered Act One and Act Two, I think right now all there is Act Three, and
yeah,
that's pretty much the end of the movie. So if anything,
I think we got
yeah, the
this.
next episode we're gonna cover Act Three and the two post credit scenes that why you know what I'm saying. Yeah, we'll
See, I feel, I almost feel like, no, I'm not even gonna make that statement. Like, I feel like as amazing as the end credit scenes with were in Eternals, because I feel like we both agree like they were like substantially more exciting than like the film itself.
mm-hmm.
The I think same feeling but inverted for what the end credit scenes were for this film, and we'll obviously get to that next time. But uh,
Yeah,
lots of like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
This is how we end it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Very
I'd
well
hate
suited.
to just be like to say this movie was a seven just because we went in expecting it to be up there like at least top five in the rankings of the movies that we'll get to later. We weren't going to get to it today regardless just because the website hasn't updated and put Strange on the list, but I'm telling you now it's not making five. It's not. I'm sorry.
We will. I'm excited to rank it. I'm excited to rank it. We'll definitely both come in ready with our own like individual verdicts, so we can kind of come together and get a consensus for what the
Yeah.
CCU ranking will be for it. But I don't know. I think the easiest word is just underwhelming to describe it. Like I said, this had amazing scenes, but I think we kind of pretty much mentioned the main big cool scene that we got. But you know, like I will say, like you know, 7 point, like I'm gonna say like 7.58,
Wow.
like because
Wow.
we ranked Morbius at a solid 7 out of 10. Like we were
Did
pretty
I?
confident and comfortable with that
Let's
ranking.
bring that down then. Let's just let's bring that down. Just so if we're let's
Let's
be
bring that
fair,
down.
because a 7.58 that is like you're bringing it up. You know, you were at a 6.5 before at the very beginning.
No, so it's a solid 6.5 without this like Sam Raimi amazing like
Mm-hmm.
incorporation in this film for sure. That scene and just like the way that it does showcase like what Wanda is in the comics as a villain, like that for me is exciting. Like I never thought we were gonna get that because I fell in love with Wanda back in Age of Ultron when she was just barely being introduced, and I really didn't think we would come to this point. I didn't think we were gonna get WandaVision. I didn't think we were gonna get this. So for someone who's a really, really big fan, Um, this scene really does encompass what those comics like House of M and things like that really incorporate. And so for that reason, like that is enough to pull it like at least a full point to say like seven, maybe seven and a half, who knows? Like it's, but yes, like I think that scene does help me pull it higher. If it weren't for those things and those elements though, I'd be sitting at a
You're
6 out of 10, which
giving
is
me, yeah,
sad.
you're giving me just tidbits of scenes that like brought it to a 7, but I feel like those are but minutes of a 2 hour movie, you know,
And that's what I
and
said at
how
like 10 minutes of,
like
yeah, yeah.
just to get that to bring it to a 7, where I would say it was for me. I'll put it at a 7. Okay, I'll give it the Sam Raimi. Okay, he didn't disappoint. He gave us what was to be expected. Okay, I'm not mad at Sam Raimi at all. Um, we got the cameos, but we got the cameos that we saw in the trailers. Plus, we saw Maria Rambeau plus John Krasinski. Okay,
Okay.
so and and Black Bolt. So we got 3 other cameos. Okay, that kind of raised the value. But aside from that, um, I would also put the story of Strange there to make it a
Absolutely.
solid 7. The story of Strange up until the end, but
Yeah.
but after that, it was the story of Wanda that brought it down a notch. It was the story for me. Well, for you said you didn't have an issue of the deaths of the Illuminati, but I was expecting more from them. That brought it down, and then also the lack of references for everything else that we know. That's what brought it down. So I would give it a 7 just because of the earlier mentioned things.
I think, and you know something, like I think a 7 is very solid because we agreed it's okay. But the thing is, based on just how hyped it was, that's a big disappointment for us to only call it okay. Like Eternals didn't disappoint me as much as this film because of how much I expected out of this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. I usually like we can kind of blame the fandom for just hyping themselves up because we do this all the
Mm-hmm.
time. But statements were made, trailers were given, like they set this expectation for us and they missed it. And you're handling big characters, Doctor Strange, Wanda. These are some of the most powerful beings in the like universe. So it's like a 7 out of 10, although it's for it to just be passing is really sad. And keep in mind, most films for Marvel are 9 plus.
Right.
You
Like
know,
say this the final product, right, that we got here. There should have been no competition with everything everywhere all at once. Okay? Especially if let's say 25 out of the 27 movies are rated 8 and up. You can't have, well, now that's it's 25 out of 28 movies, but like you can't have a movie about the multiverse, especially being that we've been building up so much multiverse talk since the fake multiverse of Spider-Man Far From Home. All of this for this movie to come short on a multiverse, because all we got was Earth 616, Earth 838, and Earth whatever Sinister Strange was on. We only got 3
yeah.
universes in the multiverse of madness. So
It's just, yeah.
it,
It's, and on top of it, it's like if this was just a Doctor Strange film, like maybe I'd rank it higher because the Doctor Strange storyline I did like for the most part, apart from like the
mm-hmm,
ending and
mm-hmm.
all that. But this was also Wanda's. Like a lot of people were like, I'm gonna go watch the new Wanda movie. Like a lot of people felt this way. And on top of it, it's the first time that we're seeing characters after the TV series. Like that's big,
Mm-hmm.
like that's, and for them to drop it within with this first kind of mesh of it all is very sad to see, and it kind of makes me worry about what we're going to see in the future. Like this is second decade of these movies. Like we want to see them last multiple more, and so for it to be shaky on something that was supposed to be so much of a hit, so big, is worrisome as a
Here,
fan.
here, here, here it is, Grace. I got it. Okay.
Hit it.
Feige, he saw the final cut. It was too late to make changes, so he let this movie come out. But after he saw it, he's like, "All right, writers, creatives, we're going on a retreat and we're going to rethink all this bullshit, okay? Because I just saw Doctor Strange just
Dude.
now and I don't like how it went. I don't like that they released this in the trailer. So I'm going to oversee any and everything as far as the writing and who you think you're going to direct. Because guess what? From here on out, I'm going to make sure that everything is right. I already had the Eternals, and now I got Doctor Strange. Nah, we need to sit down. Guess what? We're going to wherever, to Marvel Camp, and we're gonna chat. We're gonna write, and I want it to make sense. So that is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Kevin
Dude.
is fixing things at this retreat now.
Oh man, this ain't no vacation. Like everyone's getting yelled at, chewed
Yep.
out.
Yep.
Something, you may not be far off, honestly. You may not be far off. I have hope. I mean, this is Marvel. It's not Sony where it's inconsistent, but still it's worrisome being that they dropped the ball on something so big. But I'm excited for us to finish up, our Multiverse of Madness discussion. This, despite all like its downfalls, we did get some really cool elements that I think will set the foundation for a lot of films coming
Mm-hmm.
forward. I might actually go watch the movie again today. I was really hoping to watch it twice before coming in, but
I'm a
time's short, man. Time's
I'm
short.
gonna
But
stream that. I'm gonna find it online somewhere. I'm not paying. I'm not paying again. Like say they got me once.
I
I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm gonna find it. If I want to watch it again, I may just wait till like Disney Plus. You know what I'm saying?
see, I don't know. Like, I think, like, for me, when something really bothers me, especially from Marvel, like, I really like to try and dissect it and be like, okay, is this something wrong with me? Is it fair for me to genuinely be upset? And I think just from like reflecting, in preparation for today, I definitely feel like our feelings and our dislikes of certain things are very well
I think,
placed and.
but I think it's like that's the general like consensus. Like I'm not hearing rave reviews on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness like they did of Spider Man. Spider Man was
Yeah.
all over Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Like,
See, yeah. Spider-Man was overwhelming. Like I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like I literally felt like I was having a panic attack because of how just left and right, just so much going on, so amazing. And I got that in just those 10 minutes
I,
in that
I
middle
think that's
part.
safe to
And
say
that's what
that
I,
that's more of the Multiverse of Madness than Spider Man.
yeah. So it was just that's the sad thing is I was expected to feel like that the whole film or the majority of the film, and I didn't. And so that's sad. But being, like I don't know. But I'm excited that of how well they're doing this horror genre. That is for certain because they've been doing that so well, and I'm excited for that because this definitely blew it out of the
Definitely.
water. Moon Knight and Morbius were like just the taste. You know
Don't
what I
put
mean?
Morbius and Sony. That let's talk about Marvel
Mhm.
Studios horror, and I'm with you. Like, I am for if they're gonna continue the horror route. If anything, they maybe do a Russo brother type of situation with whoever directed Moon Knight along with Sam Raimi and come out with a full blown like horror movie. Being that we're gonna get Blade eventually, so horror is the next quote unquote
World.
genre of
Mhm.
Marvel, and they're just starting to explore and feel out and see how we feel about it, so
Mhm.
give us more of that. And even if y'all want to start doing some Marvel slash or like a Marvel version of like some Bloomhouse jump scare type horror, I'm all for that. If y'all can make it work, if season 2 of Moon Knight is more jump scares and especially more gory with what's the new new
brutal. Like, oh
personality
yeah,
with
Jake
Jake.
Lockley. Oh, you
Yeah,
know you're gonna
we're
get
gonna we're
that.
gonna get
Yeah,
blood. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So
we're gonna get it.
I'm all for this horror situation. It's just unfortunate that in this we were expecting more from something that was supposed to kick it off like officially. You know?
Absolutely. 100%, 100% for sure. There was something I was gonna say. I was excited to mention it, and it just kind of slipped my mind, and I'm
Where we were
upset.
talking about Moon
Um,
Knight or
I don't
oh,
know. I think we went through it. That was a good. That was a really nice like closing statement from you. And then like I was like, oh, I wanted to mention this, and I forgot. And no, it's like the thought came to me as you were speaking, but I think I also got taken away with like all the other things you were
gotcha,
saying that it like slipped my
gotcha.
mind. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I. Oh, this is what I was gonna say. This did set a new. This did break the wall in an area that I think is I don't know if I'm ready for future films in that this is the first time we've seen this brutality on like our superheroes, right? These like icons. Like as a fan, that's just brutal to watch and it's crazy. Like I like it took me a long time to like just afterwards to grasp what I just saw. And this is what we can expect from future films. Like when we get Secret Wars down the road where we're getting this like just huge like union and just like annihilation of different like characters and universes and all of this, like I think this is what we're going to have to expect to see happen to other characters, and that's kind of scary, but I'm excited for it because it's different. And that's something I think this film did definitely break the wall in, and now it's kind of like, oh crap, like what are we gonna get in future
Right.
films, you
Like
know?
I think Thanos touched us a little bit, especially with not even like killing the Guardians, but what he did to the Guardians with the Reality Stone when they were on nowhere, you know? And then Kevin Feige maybe like or maybe I keep bringing him up. All right, he's the executive of all executives, but let's say hey, let's touch on that a little more. And I feel like here in Doctor Strange, they were walking the line of PG-13 and rated R. And I feel like if
Ooh, walked it
anything,
well.
because I feel like their Marvel Studios is going to shift into rated R, especially with Deadpool coming over and Blade. But let's say if it comes down to this movie, if they actually showed Peggy Carter fall in half as opposed to like fall over, because say initially we just got like the shock of the shield hitting her, she's like ugh, you know, so you know that the shield went through her, and of course they're not going to show the bloodiness of it, but you just see her collapse. But if they got a little bit more graphic right there, right then and there, it's like we got Charles getting his neck broke, we have Mr. Fantastic getting shredded. It's not even like we can put him back together like in Infinity War, how whatchamacallit just came back together after Thanos left, you know? And then Peggy Carter getting sawed in half. Like it
That
touched the
it was
line. Like if they crossed it,
yes.
it could have been, it easily could have been rated R, especially after what she did in Kalmatosh or I think that's how you pronounce it, Kalmatosh. Um, it could have easily been a rated R, but they were just like, let's keep it to where kids will still want to see Doctor Strange.
You know what's kind of funny? I know that I forget who it was. I don't know if it was a Rooster Brother. I don't know what, but one of them wanted to have Thanos come in to like the present timeline in Endgame holding a variant of Captain America's head,
Oh damn.
like walking as he walked and just throwing it as like they're about to like ensue in battle. But someone was like, bro, I think that's a little too much. It's a little too dark. And
Yeah.
then like it's yeah, there are no limits at this point. And you know something, like I just love how well they orchestrated it because it had like the jump of like, you know, the Black Bolt initial like murder and then everything else the way it was orchestrated. And I actually, like I said, I do like how they didn't even show, and obviously they couldn't. I think that would have pushed the PG-13 rating. But I like that they didn't even like show like the full slice of Captain Marvel because I think the suggestiveness of it was enough. Like sometimes like your own imagination is actually scarier than seeing it like actually
Mm-hmm.
happen. And I liked the balance of it. Like that was super cool. And that's what I'm saying. Like when we get future films, that touch on this kind of level of goriness, like as Marvel goes forward. I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see something happen to Peter. Like, it was enough to like see Spider-Man just be like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Like, this is, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I'm ready for
Mm-hmm.
it, but I'm excited
It's
because it
coming.
makes you feel the feels, and that's cool, you know?
Disney Plus, I'm
Woo!
sure they're probably gonna actually change up their services and probably gonna have to pay extra for the rated R that's coming. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, adults,
And
you
you
know what
know
I'm
we
saying?
will.
If you want Blade, if you want Deadpool 3, subscribe to the
We
rated R
are.
version of Disney Plus.
And you know we will because we're slaves to the mouse at this
Yep,
point. It is
we
what it
sure
is.
are.
It is what it is.
All right.
All right, I think that is all I got for this part of the Multiverse of Madness
Where
breakdown.
did
You
we
got
leave?
anything else,
Oh,
Chill?
I'm gonna make a note. Like, where what I want to leave on is a better note, and it's something that Sam Raimi did, and it's after the let's say the death of the Illuminati, the tunnel chase, the way that Wanda was walking, that again gave us that this is a horror movie, guys. This isn't a fun action packed type. This is no, a monster is coming in the darkness. You see her. She may be limping, but she is coming. So Sam Raimi, I'll give you props for that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just writing down where we left off. Sorry.
Oh, that's perfect. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. I'm excited to finish this breakdown. And I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Chill. Have an
Thank you.
amazing
Thank you. Thank you.
weekend. Yeah, that's it, guys. That's it.
All right. We will
All
catch you
right.
all next week for uh the finale of Doctor Strange
Multiverse
and
of
the
Madness.
Multiverse of Madness. Like Grace, she mentioned earlier last week that there was a lot to talk about, and there sure still is a lot to talk about. So we're gonna break that down next week. So until next time, Grace, thank you. You have a great weekend, and everybody else, you all have a great weekend. All right. Well,
You as well. We'll see you guys
yep.
next week.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye.